Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? That stunk. It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast / for the last time for at least, 3 months? I don't know. Time is a flat circle. / post-game live stream here, of course, as I always am, when we record on Sundays, joined by my better podcasting half, Jeremy Cohen. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, John. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride, right? Although this time, made the bridal party. Seems before.
We were the maid of honor.
Yeah. You live with that. You live with maid of honor. Listen, Summer League doesn't matter. If the Knicks had won, Summer League would have been the most important thing we've ever talked about. We have agendas to protect, and that's mine. So, yeah,
My agenda. What agenda am I protecting right now? So it's 5 o'clock for anybody who may be listening to this tomorrow. Summer League finale just ended. We should say the Knicks did not win. It was not their best effort of Vegas. I don't even know what the final score was. Not indicative of how close this game was. The Knicks got, I don't want to say badly outplayed, but the Blazers kind of took it to them. They really hounded them on defense all game long. I don't know, but I guess the only agenda I was trying to protect coming into this game is that Quentin Grimes is really good, and he struggled. Only shot 5 of 16 overall, 2 of 11 from 3, missed some free throws. But he got, I think I could still hold on to that agenda because he got the ultimate token of respect because it sure seemed like it, Portland's entire defense was keyed on stopping him and letting anybody else besides Quentin Grimes beat them, and all of the other someone else's could not beat them. And 85-77 was the final. So there we go.
You live with it. It's all right. He showed enough in this tournament where it's nice that we're talking about him in a way that isn't just, hey, look at that 3-and-D prospect. There's more to like. So yeah, this was beneficial for him. It's beneficial for the Knicks, and take it on the chin and move forward onto the next season officially now, right? Unless you count this as the new season, in which case, all right. Not a bad place to roll into training camp with.
No, I always see this as a holdover from the previous season.
I do.
Because it starts so soon after the NBA championship ends. I mean, it's like 2-week turnaround time. And now we will officially get a break from basketball, except for the Knicks. And I thought if you're wondering how many teams are in it with the Knicks in this kind of purgatory that I'm about to refer to, the NBA odds went up for over-unders over the weekend. And you could bet on 26 teams over-unders. The teams that you could not bet on currently are I was about to say the New Jersey Nets. Not even trying to fuck around with them. That was what almost came out of that. The Brooklyn Nets, the Los Angeles Lakers, who are obviously connected with the possible Kyrie trade, the Utah Jazz, and the New York Knicks. So 26 teams will get to go on a nice vacation now for the foreseeable future and kind of get their minds off of basketball and rest up on the whole thing. While the Knicks will not, because there is a thing out there that may be happening and seems like it is going to happen. And do we want it to happen? And should it happen? And what's it going to cost? And the whole thing. We'll talk about it today. It's a weird place to be because mentally I'm ready to move on from this season, and yet can't do it right now. Yeah,
the next 2 months of will they or won't they, as we were discussing on the playback stream, should be fun. Have a Twitter account that's is Donovan Mitchell and Nick today, and it's just no every day for a month and a half.
That's a great idea.
Good. Or someone else can do the work. Probably too lazy to do it. It's a free idea.
Somebody listening or watching, go do that. Tag us. We'll promote you. Free promotion.
Yeah.
I wonder, because if you're the Knicks, wanting to get it done is not a reason to get it done now. In fact, that would probably be the worst reason to try to get the thing done now. Patience, in a certain respect, is a virtue here. At the same time, and I'm sure we'll get into this because I have a feeling most of the questions today are going to be Donovan Mitchell related. How much patience is too much patience? Is there such a thing as too much patience in this scenario? where the marketplace seems to have sorted itself out such that it is the Knicks bidding. I guess that's the difference, is like, I don't think it's the Knicks bidding against themselves, but I do think it is the Knicks bidding. Well, I mean, it's bidding against the threat that Danny Ainge will just say, I'm going to keep Donovan Mitchell on my basketball team, which is ostensibly the same threat he used with Rudy Gobert. And it was enough to get the Wolves to be like, no, we want him now, and we'll get him now because we don't want to draw this out. And, you know, for the Wolves, they kind of had the luxury to be able to do that. They had two really good young prospects on their team. They've won one playoff series during one season in 33. Different situation, new owners, the whole thing. This is not that. So I don't know. That was a very long-winded way of saying, I guess we could be in for a bit of a wait. Do you think we will be? I don't know.
Who knows? I know that's not the answer that you or people are probably looking for, but who knows?
I certainly don't know.
It's the sort of, I'll say this. I still find it hard to believe that Danny Ainge wants to go into next season with Donovan Mitchell still on the roster and have a James Harden-like situation.
Well, reference the Bagley report. I'm sure you read the yeah. So
yep.
Bagley, for anybody who doesn't know, reported. Bagley's so great with his wording. That's why I love Ian. He didn't like report the Jazz are going to want to get this done before the season, but he was basically like, it would be very surprising if the Jazz took this thing past the season. I think he referred to it as an arbitrary deadline. So, you know, and he wouldn't put that in unless he thought it was worth putting. So,
yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get to that more. Plenty of questions about it, but
yeah.
Anything summer league related before we move on to that?
I don't really have anything else, just because I feel like we've talked about these players a lot, and I feel like we've kind of come to a general consensus about everybody on I don't know. To me, like the lesser guys, like Farron Hunt, Trevor Keels, like we know what's going on with these guys. You know, Keels is going to go work it out in Westchester. Farron Hunt, same thing. Jericho Sims, great contract. Love it. Happy he's going to be around for the next 3 years. Wonderful break in case of emergency third center. Showed us some really nice things. Also showed us or reminded us that not Mitchell Robinson on defense. And for the way the Knicks are constructing this particular basketball team at this time, right now, that whatever it's the difference between those two guys is on defense, 10%, 15%, 20%, that matters. So I don't know what else there is to say about Sims. And then there's Deuce, who, you know, had some nice moments. I'm sure there are people out there who are like, we cannot give Deuce McBride to Utah, to which I say, I disagree.
I disagree, Chris. No, Chris is not alone in loving Deuce McBride. That's for sure.
No, he's a nice player, but I feel like we entered the summer league being like, all right, I'm really curious to see what we get from Deuce McBride. And now after 5 games, we're still kind of curious about Deuce McBride. You know, he's there was some progress in some areas, but he's still kind of, we didn't get the Grimes performance from Deuce. So that's, I don't know. Other than that, I don't really have much else to say. Why, anything from you?
No, I think that's pretty good. You know, plenty of post games. It's hard not to have all the attention revolve around Grimes, and rightfully so. It should have. The rest, it felt like a mixed bag, and that's fine. Even if McBride is here, I don't know how much playing time he'll get. It also depends on who would be ahead of him. I think that the Knicks are, I should say probably, but I have a feeling that Ryan Arcidiacono finds his way back into the fold.
How did I know you were going to say that?
Because, well, number one, because we talked about it on the live stream.
No, but I knew you were going to say it now.
Number two, yes, yeah. Because it's also like if the Knicks are looking for a third or fourth player who can fill that backup point guard role.
Yeah.
Like if they can use someone like McBride in a trade, what are the odds barring injury? I mean, like if you had Brunson, Mitchell, and Quickly, those three guys, aren't you going to have at least one of them on the court for 48 minutes? And then at that point, it's like, okay, well, how much time does someone like Deuce get? Given
the way that, again, it's so weird I don't even know how to talk about this team right now because it's like the Mitchell deal. Obviously, it is not done. It may not be close to being done, but we're kind of starting to live in this world where we're imagining what the team might look like with Donovan and like how much sense does that make and who needs to be here in addition and like who's, all that stuff. Okay. I think that's it. I think we can move on to the chats. First one I see here from Delano Steele Jr. Salute to everyone in the chat. Salute to J Mac and Jay Cohen at Knicks Film School. Yes, salute to everybody in the chat. Everybody here, by the way, Andrew Claudio is telling me in my earpiece, small, tiny earpiece that's barely visible. I will never get new headphones. That we are 37 people shy of 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Is that accurate, Andrew Claudio? 37?
I don't think he'd lie. I think it's pretty.
I don't know. Andrew's a little shitey sometimes.
9963. So
9963. Okay, so 10,000 minus 9963 is indeed 37. So if you're watching this right now and you haven't subbed to this very channel, help us out. Maybe we'll hit 10,000 and I will. I don't know. What will I do on air? I'll get a shot. I'll do a shot of something.
Sure.
Or I'll pour myself a drink.
9963. It's actually a really funny number because if you subtract 8,000 from it, you get 1963, which is the year that JFK was assassinated. So we're really close. Not that far away. Could totally do it. Just a matter of getting there.
We just can't make a wrong turn.
Nope.
At the last minute.
No. But the nice thing is we have more than one shot to get this right. We have more than 2 shots to get this right. Multiple shots. We can do it.
And that's clearly why people are subscribing to the Knicks Film School YouTube channel. On that note, what a transition. Kevin Danishevsky starts us off because of course he does. Hi, Kevin. Was what it was. I thought Grimes was still the best player on the floor for the Knicks. Yeah, we probably should have said that. Even though Grimes didn't shoot it well and he didn't, especially from deep, like he was, again, they geared their defense to stop him, and he still had some really nice moments. Had some nice passes, had some nice drives. The threes that he did, every three that he shoots just looks good. So yeah, despite going 5 of 16, says something, and I want him here badly. I maybe this is a good transition. If you ask me right now, what is going to be the final sticking point? Maybe not the final sticking point, but like, I get the sense they're gonna come to a compromise on the picks, and I realize that in saying that compromise in all likelihood will be tied to the player or players going back in the deal. So these are not separate entities. It's not like, all right, let's figure out the picks. Now we'll move on to the players. Like, no, it's all one big mess, which is why, along with the fact that the Knicks have so many different pick options to put together, like the notion that like, how long would it take us to go through every possible trade? Would be, till Thursday. But I do think if I was to pinpoint like what is maybe going to be the final thing, I could see it coming down to Grimes. I really could.
Yeah, I guess I'll launch into it. So I've seen a lot of Knicks fans talk about leverage. And I've seen Jazz fans talk about leverage. And I've seen one side say to the other, no, you don't have the leverage that this team has. And I feel like not no one, but I feel like there is a lack of acknowledgement in general that each side has leverage here. The Jazz have a player that the Knicks covet. The Knicks have the assets that the Jazz covet. It's a matter of, again, of course, finding that mix and match. There have been comparisons of stars over the recent years who have been traded and the trade packages that are there. And, how it's exhausting hearing people talk about unprecedented times, or we're living in an unprecedented era. Yes. Like, at what point is it precedented? This situation that we're seeing with Donovan Mitchell, though, is largely unprecedented. And the reason for that is a lot of the superstar trades and star trades that we've seen are the final piece. Yeah. They are teams that had to make this because TikTok, right? Like Kawhi Leonard, you got him in the door because you also get Paul George there. You had to do it. Yep. With LeBron, you have him on the roster. You had to find a way to get Anthony Davis. Giannis, you had to find a way to add one more high impact. You call him a star. He's an all-star in Drew Holiday.
He was
those
the
are the
perfect,
types of
he was the missing piece for
Right.
that team.
right. All those three teams, for example, had to make those deals. The
Harden
Knicks
too, right?
Harden. What? Yes, that's another one. Yeah.
The first Harden trade certainly, and honestly, we shouldn't even talk about the second Harden trade because that existed in its own multiverse.
But that is important because it features I'll still call him a star, and Ben Simmons,
Sure.
on a second contract with more than 2 years left of team control. And what did it net Philadelphia? It netted them a star. Yeah. And it was a better player, and they had to add more to the package to get that player. We haven't seen someone in the same contract situation go for anything less than a better player in return. And so it's the reason why the Jazz should be asking for RJ, but it seems that the Jazz don't want RJ because of the contract situation. That's fine. It seems like the Knicks also aren't too keen on giving him up either. That's cool. But you basically, if you're Utah, have the opportunity to amass the largest pick coverage of any team trading their star. The top one is essentially Paul George with 5 first-round picks and SGA before he's the SGA we know him as now. But that was still worth it. No. He was a fine prospect. He was not anywhere near like the sky is the limit for him. And I want that to be reminded, because when we look back on that, it's like, oh my God, they got SGA in the deal. He was fine. He was not this type of player. He was really
not a no doubt about it all-star.
Not at all.
Let's say that.
He was a good rotation piece with a higher ceiling and pedigree being from Kentucky. But he was still a good player.
Yep.
And so when you're in this case, it's like the way I see it, if you're the Knicks, you could either give Utah the largest pick package ever, 6 picks, find a way to balance the pick protections and unprotected picks. And I'm sure we'll get into the years and how they do it. Or, as I see it, you could give them the same package that you'd give for Paul George and the Clippers did, which features 5 picks and a good prospect in Quentin Grimes. The difference is that Paul George was a better player than Donovan Mitchell is now. The other difference is that Paul George had 1 fewer year of team control. So a lot goes through with leverage. A lot goes through with, the player and the type of talent and contract years. It's just not, it's like a recipe to me, right? Like recipes aren't blueprints. They're guides. You look at them to kind of help you go along, but it doesn't mean you have to stick to the script. You can be a little feasible. And this recipe is one that we just really haven't seen be done before. It's just a very different one. So it's kind of how I see it.
Someone has already created the Is Donovan Mitchell a Knick Today Twitter account, and I am going to go retweet this sucker right now. There you go. Nice job, whoever you are. Well done. I don't know why he's wearing number 11, though. We got to change that.
Yeah, it's Frank Ntilikina's number.
Yeah.
Actually, that's Ricky Liddell.
Just real quick, couple random. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent because we have a lot of questions, I know. But like I do at least want it noted for the record, Counselor, that they weren't the way that trade is often referred to. I feel like they were technically just trading for Paul George, but they were kind of trading for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. So unique situation. And that is the other thing I just wanted to say in response to that, which is that every situation is unique. I don't believe there is one blueprint. And I think the fact that, and shout out to Zach Lowe, just wrote a great piece at the end of the week for ESPN, in which, and Wendy had something on this too. I think he said on the podcast, he spoke to 20 or some odd front office people that were bitching and moaning about the Gobert trade, because basically that trade, it threw everything into like any modicum of decorum in terms of how these things are supposed to go. It may have now, in reality, I think Leon Rose can posture like, look, I'm happy for you that you got a new owner in Minnesota who was so fucking desperate and quite frankly, like stupid to do that trade. We will give you the selling point, which is 6 is more than 5, but don't expect us to go measure for measure and say, oh, if we got X for Rudy and Donovan is this percent much more of a valuable player and desirable than Rudy, thus we must get Y. Like Leon Rose is not going to be suckered into that, which is where I think the Jazz were initially coming at it from that angle. And now I have to think both sides are now coming closer to reality. Is that?
But the Wolves were this year's Bucks when they got Holiday. Like the final piece that helps solidify their defense.
Except they didn't have a two-time MVP. Well, I don't forget if he was two-time MVP.
Sure, but they have Anthony Edwards. They have Karl Anthony Towns. Like they are two players on the roster who you could make an argument next season will be better than Rudy Gobert. You can't make that argument with the Knicks. And you could make the same argument with Gobert and the Wolves as you could with pretty much all the trades that I had mentioned before then of teams that were leveraged into giving up those players.
100%. But just as the Paul George trade was kind of for Kawhi too, the Jrue Holiday trade was made in anticipation of Giannis's free agency upcoming. So I'm not saying that they were essentially trading for the security of Giannis staying. For all we know, Giannis would have stayed whether they got Jrue Holiday or not. We don't know that, but I have to think that played into their thinking at that time. Again, all of these things are just very unique, and we'll see what happens. It's gonna be fun. Let's get to some more questions. I'm sure we have a lot lined up. Kevin Danishevsky, one more. Is there any chance Grimes starts with Mitchell at the 3 and a small lineup with Barrett at the 4? I'm shaking my head. I know Tibbs hates going small, but I'm interested. I don't think that there's a chance in hell that Barrett will start at anything other than the 4. I think you could 3. Excuse me. That's what I meant. I think there is a chance that Quentin Grimes is among the league if he's on the team after the trade that may or may not happen. I could see him being one of the league leaders amongst 6 men in playing time. And I was thinking about this today on my run because it's all I could think about these days. Is what is New York's death lineup if they make this trade? And the one I came up with, and this is probably not going to be realistic until after they trade Randle, but small ball 4 with the first 1 through 4, Brunson, Mitchell, Barrett, Grimes, with Obi at the 5. And I thought about it because I was thinking about the Celtics and their run to the finals and how they used Robert Williams as this great weak side rim protector. And while I don't think Tom Thibodeau trusts Obi yet to be a consistent paint protecting force, possession after possession after possession, guarding pick and roll after pick and roll like Mitchell Robinson does, I could see in that alignment, him being used in the Robert Williams role on defense when it's just like, hey, if whatever the switching, it doesn't work and someone's coming to the rim, that's when you come over. I could see him succeeding in that role. And then on offense, I mean, that sells itself.
I thought you were going to say the small ball lineup was just their starting rotation if it's Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell. But yeah, sure. I agree. I don't think there's a huge pathway for RJ at the 4, especially if Randall's here. I mean, we're already talking about, can Obi get enough minutes? And if the Knicks just sign Hartenstein and they have Jericho Sims behind him if push comes to shove and they need to elevate him. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of time.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Of course, we get all the heavy hitters here. Robert Cross, thank you, my friend. It's fair and reasonable to say, oh, wow, this is a change. He's not asking. He's telling us. It's fair and reasonable to say that I appreciate the KFS crew for playback today. All should sign up for Patreon and prepare for hashtag Knicks Twitter Wars. One, thank you, Robert, and shout out to all of our patrons. We got a bunch of signups over the course of the last several days. Thank you. We're going to be scheduling a town hall pretty soon for our Monroe tier folks and up. And we have some exciting stuff that we've been discussing that's coming next season for all of our patrons. So shout out to all of you guys. Knicks Twitter Wars. I pray, not even hope, I pray that if they trade for Donovan Mitchell, we could at least agree to be, even if it's through gritted teeth for some, to be happy that we have Donovan Mitchell I hope we could do that. I say that out loud, and I know it's not going to happen, but that's just my naive ask.
I'll say this: it's not my preferred plan, but that doesn't mean I hate it. If Donovan Mitchell's on this team, I'm still going to root for it, and I'm going to look for ways for how the Knicks can get better. But it's still, if you're having a top 20 player, you just don't want to pay 8 firsts and Quentin Grimes and anything else. You want it to be a good deal, because while both teams have leverage, what the Knicks have on their side is time, and the Jazz don't really have that. And the Jazz have the opportunity to tank from the beginning of the season. You're not going to get that from teams like OKC or Detroit. So if Donovan Mitchell's difference between the Jazz tanking the entire season and maybe them winding up with a top 5 best odds, that's pretty key in my opinion. But that's why it all comes down to the price. I'll be happy with Donovan Mitchell, but have to see what it costs first.
I think the Hardy piece of it, Will Hardy, obviously Boston. Was in Boston. Utah's new coach wants to ideally get started off on a clean slate. Mm-hmm. And but at the same time, I will, and I know there will be disagreements with this, and that is fine, because like teams can't magic up assets out of thin air. I would be weary, because teams' priorities can change over the course of a season. And while your argument is that Ainge is going to want to get this done before the season, so thereby teams will not have time for their priorities to change, because they are, as of now, everybody's kind of set going into next year. Nothing, what is the case now is probably not going to change 2 months from now. I think there is as much impetus for the Knicks to get this done before the season as there is for the Jazz, because once things start to change and teams may start to get desperate, somebody's not working out, somebody gets hurt, like all kinds of shit could happen, and you never know who may decide to try to get themselves into the running. Again, I don't think that's going to be an issue, but like the everlasting patience I'm not there,
I'm happy to see this team is currently constructed. That's all. Like I'm very excited about everything that this Knicks team can be.
As am I.
Right. So
as am I.
Yes, I hear what you're saying in terms of other teams, but it's kind of like I'll believe that they have the ammo when I see it.
Well, but if you believe it when you see it, it's because they have traded for Donovan Mitchell.
But the difference there is that we're talking about, it's not that the Knicks can't do it. It's just that the offer that they've set, it feels to me high enough that it would take a lot for those teams to even get to that point where the Knicks could then go over that amount, which is already a very high price point. Like you'd have to, if you're Miami, you'd have to basically unlock one of your picks. And if you're OKC, why are you helping Miami make your draft pick worse?
I had the same.
But let's say they do that and you get 3 first-round picks. How are you making up the difference? Is Tyler Hero gonna give you 2 to 3 first-round picks? I'd be skeptical. Max Strus, Gabe Vincent are good players, but you'd have to trade them to a team that is comfortable having them hit free agency next year. I'm not saying it's impossible here. It's just, it sounds like from what Andy Larson said on the podcast that it's very much a 2-team race.
Yep.
Another one can materialize for sure, but it has to be the right situation. I don't know what that would be. And I don't know how Miami is going to, like, are they trading Tyler Hero and then saying, hey, we have enough? And then Danny Ainge says, okay, cool. Well, like, I'm still not going to trade him to you. Your package is still insufficient because the Knicks also have the ability to go higher. I'm fine where the Knicks are at. This is the price point. We can find a way to compromise from there.
This is why Leon Rose is getting paid an ungodly sum of money to do this exact thing that he is doing right now. And we should trust him. Forgotten NYC, is there any chance the Knicks don't end up with Mitchell? Of course there's a chance. Of course there's I mean, I guess this goes against what Jeremy just said, but I think even Jeremy would acknowledge, or anybody would acknowledge, like, shit happens, I'm trying to think of what would be the most realistic way that they don't end up with Mitchell. I feel like if there was another real suitor right now, we would have heard about it. And my main reason I think he ends up at a Knick, and why I think the betting odds right now are like it's 2-1. Not 2-1. The opposite. It's 1-2. You're basically betting $200 to win 100. Is I do think Danny Ainge at the end of the day is going to bank on the Knicks figuring out a way to be bad, and I think I'm not saying that is a wise bet on Danny Ainge's part. I want to make that explicitly clear, very clear. I believe that is the bet that Danny Ainge will make. And unless he can get what he considers a bright blue chip young prospect, he is going to go for the highest, in his estimation, the draft haul that has the highest chance of producing a blue chipper that way. So that's why I think it'll be the Knicks.
Sure. But also the best way he can get that blue chipper is by trading Donovan Mitchell so he can have the opportunity to land a great pick in this year's draft.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yes, thank you. Yes.
Donovan Mitchell is the reason why the Jazz can't tank. Yeah.
It took me a second to process that. Hannibal Miles, F. Jorge Sedano. I feel bad saying that. Look, it wasn't maybe his best performance. Listen, how about this? Let's agree to appreciate Mike Breen, who does national broadcasts as if they are the team he covers full time. Granted, tougher job for Sedano because he's doing 30 teams and he doesn't have that much time to prepare. Jaden Darcy, JD from Australia, what's going on? Good morning, guys. Got up at 4 a.m. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, JD. Got up at 4 a.m. for the stupid summer league game. Summer league rings are for bozos anyway. I agree. Didn't want it. Keels will look good in a Utah jersey. Purple is his color. They can't trade Keels, right?
They can't. But I like the idea.
Yeah, we should. Let's just go very quickly again, because you never know when people are how much people's knowledge, how high it is of this situation. So here are the players that are not going to be going out in any theoretical Donovan Mitchell trade: Jalen Brunson, Mitchell Robinson, Isaiah Hartenstein, Trevor Keels, Jericho Sims. And that's it, right? Did I miss it?
Fair and Hunt, probably.
Oh, yeah, fair.
Assuming he is signed to a two-way.
It's a shame because he showed out so much. Jeremy E., what's going on, Jeremy? Thank you for the contribution. If we, by the way, we're up to 18 away. Come on, we can do it. 18 away from 10,000. If we get Mitchell and manage not to trade away Obi, Randle simply cannot be on this team. I'm happy this question got asked because I want to talk about this for a sec. Is this front office seriously planning to just trot him out there after everything that's happened? My impression, and by the way, again, shout out to Andy Larson who just said this. So if he's heard it, again, he's getting stuff from Utah angle, so you don't know, but he said his impression was that the Knicks are kind of looking for Randle to be here next year, to be in New York, rather, next year, to be a part of this team and potentially look better alongside a better supporting cast. Now, I think that could be true, and in fact, I do think it is true right now. If you put a gun to my head, I think I would agree that the Knicks, as of right now, are planning on Randle being back and are doing so with the intention of it, or with the hope and thought that he will play better and just be better. I think the more interesting conversation is whether that is simply an end around to trading him for more value, or whether they see him as like, we think he's still good and will be good for us moving forward with these better pieces. I tend to think it's more of the latter, that it's more like they know his value is shit right now and they're going to try to get it back up. And on that note, and then I'll throw it over to you because I think this is a related point. This is from Juanon. Thank you for the contribution. Redacted still being on this roster post-Mitchell trade makes 0 sense unless Tibbs is going to play either him or RJ off the bench. How is this going to work on either side of the ball? On paper, it should not work. On paper, the notion that you are going to have 4 guys on the court at one time all of whom and it's not even close. Their primary value is with the ball in their hands. That's not smart team building. Now, are they going to sell Randle coming off the bench? I don't think so. I don't see that happening. What say you, Jeremy?
I agree for the reasons stated, for sure. The mindset that we've both had, which is that it'd be a lot easier for this team if Randle were not here moving forward. And yet I also think back, and I'm not saying I believe this, but I just want to be true to the argument that was made before. And there was agreement, which was what happens when Julius Randle is on a team and he's not the first option, if he's not the second option. The question is, can you get Julius Randle to buy into the fact that that's not who he is? No. I don't know. I really don't. And I am apprehensive, and I understand why other people would be as well. But if you're trading, let's say the Knicks trade 6 first-round picks over the next 7 years, right? That would leave them with 5 remaining. Let's say the market for Randle just isn't good. Are you attaching Are you attaching a first in order to get rid of him because of fit? You're not. You also may not be able to, depending on the Stepien rule. So that's kind of like, I think the Knicks are saddled with him at this point. I've kind of given into that feeling, and I'm sure people will talk about, hey, well, what about Charlotte, right? Well,
that's the obvious one.
But here's the other thing. We are past the point where the Hornets could take away the qualifying offer from Miles Bridges based on, like, now they'd have to agree. Both sides have to agree. And if you're Miles Bridges, maybe you don't want to do that. No. And who knows what his legal situation might be? Who knows if he's disciplined by the NBA? All these different things. I don't know if he has a role in the NBA moving forward. And the question is, if you're Charlotte, if you still think that there is a point where he can be rehabilitated in whatever way, I don't know. I'm just saying that
this
that's
is not
the mindset.
We're speculating about what Charlotte might think, to be very clear. Yes,
100%. And it's okay. Well, if they feel like they still want to involve him in the fold, and you have Randle, and they feel like I don't necessarily see it at this point.
Can I give you two more?
With the Lakers, for example?
So that's the other one, and there was a fake trade going around that we were tagged in, and I actually wrote about it for tomorrow's newsletter, so I don't want to get too much into it. Not that trade, because the valuation is off for, honestly, everybody, not the Knicks. I don't think that's nuts. Something along the lines of Russ going to Utah and like players mostly from the Knicks going to the Lakers, but I don't see that being Randle either. I would see it being other guys.
I don't see it Randle. I also think that the Jazz, because Clarkson was involved in that trade, I think the Jazz would want more value than to do that. I
completely agree.
I understand why the Knicks would do it. I understand why the Jazz would do it, except for the fact that they would probably want more for Clarkson. I think the Lakers get off pretty easy here. And I think they'd have to give up more, and I don't think they have more to give.
The only other team, and again, I don't think it makes sense from a basketball standpoint at all, especially after the DeJounte Murray trade. But like, we've heard for months now. I mean, we've heard for months that John Collins is going to get traded, right? It's a toxic, I don't know, toxic, but like, it's not a good situation with him and Trae Young. Well, guess what? John Collins is still here, and the reason in Atlanta, and the reason John Collins is still Atlanta, I would guess, is that Atlanta tried to do the same thing I bet the Knicks tried to do over the last few months and tried to get value for their starting power forward. And everybody looked at John Collins and was like, $25 million a year. Is there a possibility you think the teams could be like, here, let's just swap problems? I don't know. I'm just spitballing. That's it.
Yeah, and I guess if you think this team is going to be fine if they acquire Donovan Mitchell and have Julius Randle on the roster, and if the pick is gone, like, I guess how high is the ceiling going to be regardless? Because the whole thing with getting Donovan Mitchell is, well, what's next? How are the Knicks getting a player better than Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah.
Then in that case, I can get the argument for keeping Julius, because if you don't have your pick, it's going to be going to Utah anyway. You don't want Julius to hurt the team, but at the same time, you don't want to hurt yourself further by dealing Julius Randle just to get off of his money and get something like that. It's complicated. But that's kind of the situation the Knicks would be presented with.
And just to put a capper on, and then I'll get to Fern's question. I actually don't think, and again, I am the captain of the Get Julius Randle Off My Basketball Team fan club.
Yeah.
I don't think it's crazy to think that he will look better next year alongside a more talented group. As much as it, yes, I understand it does not make the most basketball sense. And honestly, it would probably require RJ taking a temporary, not step back, but like we saw him embody more of a 3-and-D role, not last season, but the season before that. And I went and looked up the numbers today. After that 10-game massive slump that he had a good first game of the year against, I think it was Indiana. Then he went in the tank for 10 games. From that 12th game to the end of the season, he had an effective field goal percentage of 52.2, which compare that to last year when he was obviously on ball so much more. It was 46.6. So RJ has shown you the ability to be a guy who can be a valuable piece of what you're doing at both ends of the floor without the ball in his hands. Is that his role on this team long term? Absolutely not. But if there was a situation where the Knicks felt like, look, we need to like build up Randall's value a little bit, and RJ, we're going to give you a 9-figure contract as a show of faith that you're going to be very much an on-ball player on this team going forward and a very key piece. I don't know if that's a way that they would go, or they would just do like a lot of staggering and just try to get everybody their touch. I don't know. There's no easy answer, but just something I wanted to throw out there. Okay. Fern Rodriguez, thank you for the generous contribution. 2 questions. Any significance? No Brunson intro day yet. Front office waiting on Donovan Mitchell to do both. I'll just answer that. I reached out to Knicks PR because I was curious about the intro presser for Mitchell, or for Brunson, excuse me, because I think Greg Armstrong had put it out on Twitter that it was going to be. Yeah, look at Andrew on the ball. I don't want to dispute this from Greg, but I was told we will let you know if we schedule anything. So take that for what it's worth. It is entirely possible that Knicks PR is lying to me. I would hope not, but you never know. So that's all I have on that. And I don't think the two things are connected necessarily. I could see them just not doing an intro presser for Brunson. It would not shock me. Second question, any chance the Donovan Mitchell team trade turns into a 3-team deal with Randle going to Charlotte to replace Miles Bridges? So we kind of just touched on that. Oh, shit. I was referencing Andrew's telling me in the chat to read Greg's tweet. Sorry, Andrew. Okay. Jalen Brunson will be introduced to New York this Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. at MSG. The press conference will be nationally televised. There you go. That is what Greg Armstrong tweeted. Again, I hope that happens. I hope I am being lied to by Knicks PR. Nothing would make me happier. Anyway, possibility of a 3-team deal. Here's the thing with the 3-team deal is I think the way it works is if it unlocks specifically an additional draft asset for Utah in this trade. And I don't see Charlotte. I could be wrong. I don't see Charlotte giving up a first-round pick, a good first-round pick, to swap out, I guess it would be Hayward, for Randle when they already have a first-round pick out that has protections, because then that basically encumbers them from trading another first-round pick for a very, very long time. And I don't think they want to be in that situation. And I certainly don't think Utah gives 2 flying fucks about acquiring Gordon Hayward again. So where's the team that is essentially going to give up a draft asset to swap out what they have in exchange for some combination of Knicks stuff and something that Utah has that maybe Utah doesn't really want, which, again, as you said, Jeremy, I don't think Jordan Clarkson fits into that definition, because I think Jordan Clarkson is an asset, and I don't think Utah just wants to give him away. That's why the Westbrook thing is interesting. And I wonder, and I'll throw another name in there, and it just doesn't quite jive because they'd be getting Derrick Rose and this guy. But how good is Mike Conley's contract right now? 2 years left, 22 and 20 for a guy that's, been kind of banged up now for a couple of years. He's very good when he's on the court, and he could shoot. Are we sure any team in basketball wants that contract? I'm not. Not at that price point. It's a tough logistical contract to inherit for a lot of teams. If you're the Lakers, where I'm obviously you're just throwing shit against the wall at this point to try to get these two stars back to a championship. If the Kyrie thing doesn't work out, I could see them looking at Mike Conley's deal and be like, you know what? Sure. Why not? I mean, I'm just spitballing. I don't know.
Well, the second year's guaranteed for like $14 million, but you
That
probably
sounds about right.
like, even if you're the Lakers, if you're getting Mike Conley, you're not going to non-guarantee him to get cap space, because you're not going to get cap space because you will have 2 max contracts on the books, assuming LeBron extends, which I think he will at some point. And then you have Mike Conley, his dead money. So yeah, there's certainly an option. You know, you could make an argument too with Bojan Bogdanovic. He might make more sense. At a certain point, they need to give in. The other teams,
he's an asset, though. I think still
he is, but then that's again, it's like
it's a big number.
If you are the Lakers and the Jazz, do you do Russell Westbrook and those 2 firsts for Conley and Bojan Bogdanovic?
Lakers aren't doing that.
I don't think so either. But it's more like if the Nets are saying we're not moving Kyrie for the package, we don't want Russell Westbrook. You have to find another way. And they're really 2 teams with significant cap space. One is the Spurs and the other is the Pacers. So, and this just to go back to the Knicks conversation with Randle, if you wanted to find a way to move him, you then need to consider, are those teams renting out their cap space? Do the Pacers, who have $31 or so million in cap space,
enough to take in, right,
really want someone like Gordon Hayward if it were a 3-team deal? Probably not without incentivizing it. Same with Utah, because if Utah's talking about, we don't want to pay RJ Barrett, we don't want to pay Tyler Hero, we don't pay Cam Reddish, any of these guys, taking on $31 million in Gordon Hayward's contract, not ideal without being compensated.
Well, and especially since there's a second guaranteed year, Derek. That's the other part. If it was an expiring contract, that would be different. But yeah, there's one other piece I have, and I'm not going to give away the whole thing in the newsletter, but check out the Knicks Film School newsletter tomorrow, and you'll see the whole fake trade that I have. Vasias Papas, I hope I pronounced that correctly, might be in the minority here, but I don't really want Donovan Mitchell. We have to give too much, and I don't like pairing him with Jalen Brunson. Go Knicks, go Olympiacos. Listen, I think you're not alone. I think there are a segment of the fan base out there that is just like, it's going to cost too much. I would just respectfully. First, let me handle the point with him and Jalen Brunson. I get it. It's a small backcourt. It is probably going to be an issue at the very least in the last 5 minutes of a high-level playoff game in something like a conference finals or a finals, or and as soon as I say those words out loud, I remember I'm a Knicks fan, and I have not experienced any of those sorts of things in a very long time. Now, that doesn't mean you punt on, like if I thought it was going to be literally impossible to survive basketball-wise with these 2 small guys in the backcourt, I would say, all right, you know what? Fine. It's not the move. I don't believe that to be the case. I don't think it's so unworkable that it is a deal breaker. Staggering happens in the playoffs. Really, really good players, all-star level players, find themselves on the bench at key moments of key games because it's just, it's about matchups, and maybe the matchups aren't there. Jordan Poole. Ellison says we just played a final today, John. What a final?
Summer League final.
Yeah,
they played in the championship.
There you go.
First time you've seen it.
Good call.
Have some respect for the Summer League Knicks.
Literally went right over my head. Now I've completely lost my point.
Matchups.
Yeah, the point is, like, I think it's workable. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to reference. The finals we just saw. Jordan Poole is probably going to get a $100 million contract. Had trouble getting on the floor in the finals. Like, that's what happens sometimes, like when you get to those stages. So that's not a reason I'm not doing the trade. And then if you just you don't love how much you're going to give up, well, what's your plan? What's the path? And I understand that that's somewhat facetious because there's always other options, but when you're playing the odds, I think the odds on this one working versus any other path you want to say I think they're a little better, presuming it is not some ungodly package that just is like beyond unreasonable.
I've come off of the fear of Brunson and Mitchell together because if it doesn't work long term, there are ways of fixing that.
Yep.
That's not the biggest thing. And I understand you could say, well, if over the next 3 years you don't see the Knicks going far, why would you even trade for Donovan Mitchell? And I think the reason for that is still, well, you could put yourself in a markedly better position than you are now. It just comes down to, okay, yeah, who are you getting after you get Donovan Mitchell? That's why the two biggest things that I'm concerned about, not necessarily in this order, but just generally. Number one, of course, is the total cost. You don't want to pay too much to the point where, great, you got your star in the building, but
no other way to
some
get number
difficulty.
two.
Right.
Yeah.
And number two is how far out the picks that you're trading go. Because if you find yourself in a position where if you're the Knicks and you're trading either the 2028 or 2029 first round pick, then you can't unlock your picks until 2030 or 2031, respectively. And that is a huge issue if you're New York because it hamstrings you from what you're able to accomplish, which means you either need to find a way to be financially creative, which the Knicks sort of are doing with their descending contracts, and really hone in on 2025 when you would imagine there might be a good free agency class. Or if that doesn't work, you then have to trade for a player. And if we're in 2025, the furthest out you can trade your first round picks is what? 2033, because you have passed the 2025 draft. So really, if you you have access to 4 firsts, but you can't trade more than 2 of them if you did the 2028 first. Like, I know Stepien's confusing, but the point is it puts you in a very untenable situation for New York. And that's why I think the Knicks are really trying to focus on these protected picks, and they're trying to focus on unprotected picks that are not going to extend too far into the future, not because they're worried about being bad, but because they have no control or limited control over what they can do to then say, hey, we have RJ Barrett, we have Donovan Mitchell. How can we get that one bona fide player to get us way over the top? And it's tough.
The 2029 pick, when I will be, dear God.
Don't say it. You don't have to.
I'm not going to say it because the number just went into my head, and it's not something I care to. No. The 2029 pick is so important because it is the difference between being able to be or being hamstrung to the point that Jeremy just eloquently said, or if you keep that pick, you're essentially 2 years away from being able to offer swaps in 2028 and 2030 and firsts in 2029 and 2031. And if you keep at least one of these kids and one of these kids turns out to be pretty good, well, then all of a sudden that's a package. There's your package for your second star. Very easy. And by the way, I think that'll be maybe a more marketable package, because here's the other thing. And this is the other part of the Donovan Mitchell thing. It's like, okay, you're trading for him and you don't think you can win a championship in the next 2 to 3 years. Well, it's a good thing that Donovan Mitchell is 25 fucking years old, and by all indications seems to very much like the idea of playing in New York. And yeah, we could go further on down this rabbit hole about, because again, people fear the Melo trade and the incompetence that was displayed in attempts at team building after that trade, and how bereft that team was. The notion that this team could make this trade and be 4 or 5 years away from 17 wins. I mean, look, you never know, but I don't see it. I don't see it.
No, one more thing before we transition that I just want to say is I've talked about how the path to get, if you get your first star in the building via trade, you still need to find your second star. It hasn't worked in the past, and that's true. But we also haven't seen a situation really where the team that's trading for that star is using either another team's first round draft picks as coverage or as the foundation of a package. So if you're left in a place where you're not like stripped bare like the Lakers after the AD trade or the Nets after the Harden trade, there's room to grow there. And when you have the cap rise in such a nice way that never happened with Carmelo Anthony, that's a different story too. So it's a fine line. You'd have to navigate it very precariously, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, and it doesn't mean that opportunities can't present themselves. So they're very different situations. The Melo trade and a prospective Don trade, very different.
Yeah, and to your credit, because you always point this out, and I maybe poo-poo it a little bit. I do trust this front office to be able to navigate the finer points of that evolution from point A to point B, because it will need to be deftly navigated. And, this is where trying to win these little deals comes up big eventually. Anyway, Andrew, hello, sir.
Hi, guys. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Doing okay.
Is my mic okay?
Your mic is
loud.
Fine.
It's loud.
Little
Okay.
loud. No, it's fine. I mean,
It's good. You can hear you, Crystal.
Listen,
clear,
you're a
but-
big personality. It's okay.
Yes, I am. I explained it to John the other day, Jeremy, that because I project that my mic has probably been blown and I have to go get a new one during the summer. But more on that later in the summer, because we're going to do a quick reset. There are almost about a little more than 560, about 570 in the chat watching this on a Sunday afternoon. The Knicks lost the Summer League championship to the Portland Trailblazers 85-77. Shout out to the young Knicks who at least made this Summer League entertaining. And shout out to all of you for joining us on these live streams during the off season, which have been more eventful than we planned on. Definitely recently, we didn't expect to be addressing family business at any point. But if you wanted to come on today to celebrate the Knicks winning a Summer League championship and you're disappointed, maybe you could pivot that energy into this.
Hey. That's cool.
We have officially hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Started this channel a little less than 2 years ago, and I just want to wholeheartedly thank these two for being the face of the content that we put out, and all of you for subscribing to said content and showing us your love and support in ways that we could never imagine. So
I have to say,
go ahead.
Two quick things. One, for Jeremy, the cap or no caps, that's something that people I think like to watch as much as more than they want to listen to it. Certainly makes a bigger difference than the difference between hearing my face or hearing my voice and looking at my ugly face. But I have to give the biggest congratulations to you, Andrew, because when you came on board at Knicks Film School, the pod was already, I mean, it wasn't what it is now. It was doing pretty good. There were subscribers and the whole thing. This YouTube channel, like, it existed. It was there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a thing, but it was nothing. And you went to me and you're like, do you mind if I get a crack at the YouTube channel to see if we could turn it into something? And I don't even what did it have? Did it have 1,000 subscribers?
It had a little less than 1,000.
There you
it was
go.
just like JB had those highlight clips
Yeah.
of things we couldn't monetize. And it was just like, oh, Frank Ntilikina plays defense on James Harden for a minute. And
God bless, Frank.
that was what the entire YouTube channel was. And I think I went to you during the pandemic when there was like nothing going on, and I saw our download numbers going up and was like, okay, like maybe there's a world here. I've never taken a real crack at video editing. I think I can do this. And it's been a team effort. You guys have worked really hard at making sure the content is consistent. And I want to pay this back to everybody else. Thank you for making all of this possible, because I've made this joke the past couple of weeks. If without all 10,000 of you or 10,000 plus of you that watch this later on, like, we would just be three people talking into a camera about the Knicks, and which I wouldn't consider it time wasted, but you've given us a platform that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So thank you for making all this hard work a little bit extra worth it. Jeremy, I'll give you a chance to say something.
Can I wait? Hold on. Can I just?
Oh, go ahead, Don.
Can you filibuster for a minute while I go pour myself a celebratory drink?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll tell you, we're taking a shot. I got one.
Hang on,
but
I'll be right back.
I'll go with Pepsi. Go ahead, Jeremy.
You know what? I got
what do you
some
got?
nice Chloroseptic right here.
Oh,
from my COVID days. That's
You're
the only
out
thing
for
that's
your COVID day.
if you want some real alcohol, I got some Purell. I have to go get it. But anyways, in the meantime, yeah, it's awesome. I am so honored and appreciative of all 10,000 accounts. Thank you. It's pretty remarkable. I have to pinch myself sometimes about like now getting to 10,000 in less than 3 full years is it's crazy. It's a testament to the work we're able to do and the people that are there to receive it and encourage it. So thank you, as always.
At least 10,000 people have heard of us, Jeremy.
That's
unless they're all bots. They're all bots, right?
They could be bots. It's very possible. You know.
Oh, I like Mano F. Hashtag 53,000 subs. We're working on it.
You know what? Would be great.
CP land.
Yeah,
we're working on it.
I think the goal is to have the YouTube plaques that we can get.
Yeah,
which is like 100,000. So just multiply what we got by 10, and that'd be cool.
And
we'll take a plaque.
Shout out to Benji, who his film threads have added to this. Draft class is kind of underrated here, I think, at a certain point, because Chris was our draft coverage over the offseason. So shout out to them too. To our consistent super chatters, like to the Dom Cappuccinis, to Robert Cross, to Kevin, to Jessica, to literally every single person that has consistently, chimed in after these post games. Whether you're agreeing with us, whether you're yelling at John, we appreciate, your contributions. John with the shot, was that scotch or a shot?
No, this is bourbon on the
That's
rocks.
bourbon. You can tell I have no idea what alcohol looks like.
I'm a 39-year-old man. I'm not doing a shot.
We're cheersing into the cameras, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers to all of you. Thank you again for making this reality. I know this means a lot to Andrew. It means a lot to all of us. And on that, Andrew, you want to stay around for a bit, or?
I was definitely going back behind the scenes. I'm going to social promote all of this. But continuing with this theme, next up in the super chat,
Corey R. What's going on, Corey? How you doing? Randle, Duran, Fournier, Grimes, Keels, and 9 first-round picks for Zion and Donovan in a 3-team trade. Duran, I don't believe we have him anymore.
I think he's gone.
I like the creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Let's completely fuck around here for a second. You have to place your wager today on, assuming they get Donovan Mitchell, who's the second star, and you can't just say no one. They're gonna fuck up and they're gonna get fired. Who's the second star?
You're killing me. You're killing me by doing this. I know, but I'll do it.
I'll say a name too.
All right. So again, I'm gonna maintain that if the Knicks are in a position to get Donovan Mitchell, and they get Donovan Mitchell, and they're waiting for a star of some sort, then they're probably not going to go with someone at the 5, right? That has not been their MO to find a star center. They've found ways to get meaningful production for far cheaper. And I think the NBA has typically gone that route. I mean, look, you could say I'm hedging, or they're hedging. I'll get to my point. I'm going to get to my point, but like, they're not going to go after an Embiid type player, right? So realistically, I think you're looking at someone who is at the 4. You're finding a really like jumbo sized wing who can be switching consistently, who can pull up, who can defend, do everything you want. He plays not too far down the road. If you head a little bit northeast, I'll say Tatum.
Oh, you'll say who?
I'll say Tatum. Again, look, you're putting me on the spot, and it's gonna find the no context, or it's like, look at Knicks fans, they want but again, I don't think it would be another lead ball handler. Maybe you could make an argument that there's someone at the 2, but the way the Knicks have also operated that way was getting, like the Reggie Bullock types, the Evan Fourniers. They don't want someone who's maybe super high usage at the 2 unless it's like Devin Booker. And if you're trading for Donovan Mitchell, how are you able to get Devin Booker a few years down the line if your picks extend that way? So maybe you're hoping for free agency, like I've talked about, where you can structure your contracts. And it goes back to the player at the 4. If it's not Randle, if you have questions about can Obi be that guy, how you find someone who's not, and you're keeping RJ Barrett and you're keeping Donovan Mitchell, to me, it feels very much like that is the clearest and most crucial need. Finding someone who can be an elite player and also plays at the 4. And not too many guys who can do that. And I don't know Boston's an elite team. I expect them to potentially win a title in the next 3 years. My question for Jason Tatum, just generally, is what does Boston look like for when you sign your next contract? Are they going to be the team that they are right now? Because if Jaylen Brown wants to stay, then that certainly helps them. If he doesn't want to stay, it's a bit of a problem. Marcus Smart, he's going to be older. He's had a lot of wear and tear. You hope Robert Williams is healthy, but big men and knees and everything and feet, his feet have been fine. But generally, it's not easy. So I think the Celtics, they recognize their window to win a title is now, and I believe they could very easily win one over the next 3 years. But I think they're on the clock, and I think there are questions that they have to ask themselves of how can we, after Tatum's a free agent, how can we make our team to be an elite squad and stay elite, even with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and getting new pieces in. A lot can change. That's 3 whole years from now. He could sign a supermax contract.
I like it,
and it could be gone. But
I love the answer.
And I'll say the one last thing, because I'm glad we could talk about this. I don't have to talk about it for a while. We talked about on playback with Keels, and I said he's not a fit with the Knicks. It makes no sense to me based on what we know of the Knicks. Like, he is very much the antithesis in a lot of ways.
Keels for Tatum, who says no?
Exactly. But Duke. You think about the Duke connection. You think about Drew Hanlon, and like the fact that clearly there are connections if you want to find them. But you put me on the spot, I'll give you the answer. I don't expect it to happen now that I've said it, but
no, it's gonna happen. The first name that popped into my head was Embiid.
Interesting.
Because I think that could go poorly.
But then if we're talking about injuries, right? Like, that's 28 years old, long-term contract.
Yeah, no, this would be a few years down the line. Can
you depend on him? I don't know how you can.
I think that's part of why he's going to be gettable.
Maybe.
But then
are we okay? All right, fair enough.
I'll say Embiid.
Porque no los dos? Am I right?
Yeah.
The salary cap's a social construct. If anyone knows that better than me, I don't know. But
Jaden Darcy, get that bad boy back up there, Andrew. Jaden Darcy, Grimes ain't going nowhere. We need a replacement for Frank in the most handsome backcourt. He's a handsome young man. Comp. We need the baddies in MSG. He does that for us. I've said this a few times of late.
Gotta get it for the baddies. You have to do it.
The baddies are the key. I don't even know where to go from that. Quentin Grimes will be absolutely vital to this team in the immediate future. Because if they trade him, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure what their path is to a decent defense. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Tibbs is their path to a decent defense.
You can't pray to the church of Tibbs and then wonder aloud how he's able to.
Again, they were 11th ranked defense in the league this year. People, just want to kind of sleep on that. But no, I think Grimes is. I think his shooting is going to be really, really important as just a guy who you're not going to be able to leave open, and who is going to be very comfortable taking spot up three after spot up three after spot up three. My God, that dude will average 10 threes per game. Maybe not 10, but like 7, 8. Yeah, I don't think that's crazy at all. I like Grimes a lot. Bernard Richardson, what's going on, Bernard? Call me dumb. I would never call anybody dumb. I'm a nice guy, but I easily could see Grimes being a better hero. Tyler Hero. Hero's gotten the playing opportunity, but what does he really do better than Grimes? Well, Tyler Hero creates offense out of nothing. He's
a 6-man for a reason.
Yeah. So the defensive concerns are real. We could poo-poo his passing a little bit, but he averaged like 4.5 assists a game last year, something whereabouts. Like we make RJ out to be a playmaker. RJ only averaged 3. Hero played a little bit more minutes, but like he could pass it. Just defensively, I think you're worried about. He's one of those quirky players where his ceiling, and we've talked about this before, his ceiling might be the role he's in right now, which is a 6-man on a contender. And look, I mean, Manu Ginobili made the Hall of Fame in that role. I'm not saying Tyler Hero is Manu Ginobili. I want to be very clear about that. But that is a vitally important role that if that is all he ends up being, I think it's still very good because, man, that dude could get his own shot, and that is not Grimes. Now, that said, I think, and I'll drink again because Zach Lowe teased recently that he had a piece coming out on Tyler Hero and about how he is the most, I think he teased it on a podcast, called him the most polarizing prospect in the NBA. Because I think there probably are some people out there who just don't see the ceiling as anything more than what he is right now. And I bet there are probably some people out there who are like, man, what happens if we give him a 30 usage rate and play him 35, 36 minutes a night and just put the ball in his hands for high pick and roll after high pick and roll? He has enough shot making ability. He has displayed enough shot making ability that I think that's at least a conversation. I'm very curious to read that piece when it comes out. So, but with Grimes, I think you're just getting, it's just, you know what you're getting. It's just so, it's going to be steady as she goes. And I think Grimes is going to be very good in that role.
This is a quick side note, but it's tangential. So with Hero, the thing is that he is often considered a positive asset because he is playing well, but the reason he's playing well is because he plays for a good team. And playing for a good team then elevates your status in a way because you're seen as a winning player. And reading through tweets from Jazz fans, several of them, to get a lay of the land, not that they are accurate or not, just an understanding, and hearing the Windhorse podcast where you had Bontemps and McMahon talk about how, like, oh, it's the Knicks need to do it because Stephen A. Smith is going to be upset if the Knicks don't trade for Donovan Mitchell, and ergo their fans must feel the same way, like Stephen A. Smith, basically saying that Knicks fans are all essentially a character that Stephen A. Smith gets to play on TV, which couldn't be further than the case, but I digress. It's the thing where it takes time and effort to wash away the stench that has been the Knicks for a while. And if you can show that you're a winning team and have winning habits, like all of these comments of the Knicks are desperate. I've seen so many people say that the front office is desperate. What evidence do we have that the Knicks front office is desperate? Because if they were desperate, they would have made many trades before this point to show we need to get a winning squad on the court right now.
If anything, the opposite is the case.
It's been too patient, and I've been fine with being too patient. That's a-okay. In my mind, too patient is just being patient. But I recognize that if they see a top 20 player that they think can be better than that coming here, I get it. But you have to think that, okay, if this is a front office, like Danny Ainge, his best deals are the ones that he could have made, but didn't, because he was so close, but it just didn't materialize, right? Like he wanted to trade a lot for Kristaps Porzingis, and we know firsthand what happened with Kristaps Porzingis and why he was a bit of a risk. Like, you make good deals, you make bad deals, but if you're the Knicks, it's why, if Grimes is the deal breaker, it depends on the picks going out, but even still, like, he seems like a winning player. If that's how you get to that point, I understand it. You have to give to get. It's just Grimes' status, in my opinion, would be raised certainly higher if he has not even a larger role, which would certainly be ideal next to Brunson, but just the Knicks as is being a better team, like showing, hey, wow, one of the players that Knicks fans are not bickering about, but thinking like this guy shouldn't go, was the 25th pick overall in 2021. Yep. That's a testament to the front office and how good they've been with drafting and scouting and developing. And to me, it's pretty awesome that we're at this point that the 25th pick overall is like, should he go or not? Because to most teams, a pick in that range is a player who just maybe flames out, maybe is a backup for a bad team, or doesn't really see much court time for a good one. I think that's pretty cool for the Knicks, and I'm glad that they were able to find that value.
And say this for the front office. For as much as they have not done an A+ job, and I have been, I don't want to say as critical of them as anyone, because I think there are some people that are really critical. I have been critical of them. We are talking about guys who were selected with what quickly ended up being 27th, right? He was 25. That's right. Mm-hmm. It was, they moved from 27, 21, then down, or 27, 23, and then down to 25. Quickly 25, Grimes 25. And Knicks fans, justifiably so, will lose their fucking minds if both of these guys are included in the trade for Donovan Mitchell, along with, at that point, I would guess, 3 unprotected Knicks picks, and then these 3 other assets that, oh, by the way, 3 other draft assets, because I think it's going to be 3 and 3. I think that's going to where this is going to end up. Those other 3 draft assets, not here when this front office took over. Now, you could say, okay, well, yeah, but they just had the 11th pick in the draft, or whatever the pick we had, 10th pick in the draft, 11th pick, 11. I already forget, yeah. 11. And they traded it away to, get some. Okay, that's fine. But give them this. They have put themselves in this position with things that they had to go out and get and grow and mature and like the whole thing. That's impressive. It's an impressive job by them. So, like, because we wouldn't be yelling and screaming about it if they didn't do that. And yet, here we are. So.
And one more thing, and then we can move on. You could look at a silver lining this season as, or I guess the question I would pose is, let's say that the Knicks did do better this year, right? Let's say they were picking 14th, 15th instead. What they did was they found a way to leverage that 11th pick by understanding both OKC and Cleveland wanted Jalen Williams. No, well,
that's right.
For Thunder,
yes.
but Jalen Williams was also a key player that both teams seemed to want.
Yeah.
And if you're the Knicks and you had a better season and you're picking lower, you're not able to leverage those teams because one of them could just get it. If anything, the team that would be holding the 11th pick would have the leverage and you wouldn't. And if you're able to turn the 11th pick into 3 future picks, future firsts, whether they're protected or not, that's important to me. In my mind, that's important. And if the Knicks at the 15th pick and they're picking someone in this draft who maybe there's a prospect anyone likes, that's cool. But it puts them in a weakened spot to get this type of player like Donovan Mitchell. Yep. So sometimes you have to go through hell to get to heaven. Is this that type of situation? I don't know, but I'd like to think that we look back in time and we say, 2021-22 season was rough. It was not like the season before. Everything came crashing down to earth. Free agency did not pan out the way we wanted it to. But in some ways, like,
maybe
it
it's
worked
for the
out.
best.
And it was a small step back for a giant leap forward. We'll see.
Your lips to God's ears. Dom the dentist. I think he's making his return. First time since the end of the season. Shout out to Dom Cap, who can't be here. Yes, Domino Cappuccini. We've been DMing all week. He couldn't make it today. On behalf of the Doms, in today's microwave society, do you think Grimes' performance today affects his value? No, I don't think it affects it one bit. The Blazers keyed in on stopping him. He is not ready to be in on ball every possession, like just give me the ball and get out of my way sort of player. He will never be tasked with doing that in an actual NBA game. So I think tip your cap to him the fact that he got that level of respect today. Forgotten NYC. It's an interesting question here. How much pressure is on Leon to get Mitchell here? So
we're talking internal or external pressure? Because I think there's a very key difference there.
I think it's a good. I like that he left it kind of general because I think to Leon, my assumption is that Leon is doing what he feels is in the best interest of the franchise long term, with the understanding that tanking and bottoming out has never been an option. I think that was the one caveat. I think when James Dolan hired him, he's like, look, I want the Knicks to be exciting again. Just give me an exciting basketball team. Give me a fun basketball team. However you want to go about doing that. I trust you. Go do it. I think he's still operating under that umbrella. I don't know if that's a little vague, but like I'm not going to say he's not feeling pressure. I think he's feeling pressure because he knows Donovan Mitchell will make his basketball team a lot better. I think that's the pressure he's feeling. I don't know.
The pressure is if another team for a lot less gets Donovan Mitchell. That's really it to me. If the price is too high and Donovan Mitchell is still a member of the Jazz, then you can say, okay, well, he didn't overplay his hand too much. Again, because if the whole point with Donovan Mitchell is who's the star after Donovan Mitchell, then you don't want to give up too much that then hamstrings your team down the line and hurts what you're able to do. And we know that if the Knicks don't get Donovan Mitchell, they're still in a very nice position where they can either trade for a star if one becomes available, because one always becomes available. And in the event, if again, there's no mandate for him to get a star this season. And we know they tried to get Jaden Ivey. It didn't work out. The Knicks have more assets to trade up in next year's draft or find a star who might be on the move. They're fine. That's why, to me, if they get Donovan Mitchell, it comes down to price and the types of picks. It's fine. Let's see what that is, but it's not something I'm terribly worried about, because I know that it's never been about the season. It's never been Donovan Mitchell or bust.
But that's not what it is for me, at least. And I'm not going to say I am worried. I'm not worried.
What are you worried about?
I think it's a really, really, really good fit, with the understanding that, yes, it is a backcourt of 2 6'1" guys. I get that. It's not ideal. Aside from that, he's 25. He adores New York. Like those, and oh, by the way, and I think this is the point that I'm really, I think I'm not in the minority, but like, man, this guy has shown up on the biggest stage in the playoffs multiple times. Now, he didn't do it this year, and you could hold that against him if you want, but I think everybody knew this thing was coming down. So do you blame him for that? Maybe. Okay, fine. You want to blame him for not showing up at all on defense? That's okay. I believe in his ability to be he's never going to be in that Steph, KD, Luka, LeBron's still there. Kawhi, if he's healthy, is still there. Giannis. He's not that. He's not going to win an MVP, right? Probably. He's not going to win an MVP. But I think he could be, like, right now, there's a next tier of guys, and I think observers look at him as being on the bottom of that next tier. I think he could get to the top of that next tier based on just what he's able to do, based on the numbers. Just look at the numbers. I'm not going to sit here and just, they're there. The numbers are there, and they're not fake numbers. They're not like those are real. That's real data. He is insanely gifted between high usage and efficient and scoring in every way possible. I think he's really good. That's all. I think he's really freaking good. I think he's worth a big price. That's all.
What are you worried about?
I'm worried they're not going to get him.
That's your worry. Your worry is that they're not going to get him.
No, I think
let's dive deeper. Why are you worried that they're not going to get him?
Because I'm a fucking Knicks fan. And
so it's out of emotional response, right? Is that where we're at right now?
I think that whether it's a 5 or 15% chance, the notion that, like, because the market is the way it is right now, that we are definitely going to the Knicks are definitely going to end up with him, I think is a slightly dangerous game to play, because, as I said before, shit happens. We could go through 50 different things that have happened in the NBA over the last 20 years where it's like, wow, nobody saw that coming. Like and you want to slow play your hand, I'm fine with that. Leon, do your thing. This is why we hired you. More than to go get the star. We hired you because you have negotiated for a living for 2 decades. Now here you go. Now is your chance to shine. But just get it done. That's all. Just get it done.
So you're worried about Pat Riley? Yes. You're worried about Pat Riley. You're worried that Pat Riley
say it? Yes, I'm worried about Pat Riley.
Yes, I wanted you to say
He's
it.
the boogeyman.
We can't all read your mind. I can read your mind, but not everyone else can. All right.
I have more respect for that man than any human being involved with the NBA.
I understand why you would feel that way. The question is that if Danny Ainge wants to win, yes, as Andrew says, fuck the Heat. Sure. If Danny Ainge wants to win every deal, because we know he does, I don't understand why the Heat are giving a worse offer and the Jazz are taking it. And if the Heat somehow create a package that is up to par with 6 first-round picks that the Knicks can offer right now, that the Knicks wouldn't just up the ante if they wanted to. And if they don't want to and they feel it's too much, you can still walk away. You can. That's just how I feel.
It's very fair. Nothing you said is wrong. Nothing you said is wrong. I appreciate it. Okay, let's get through some of these super chats. The main connects. Here we go. If the Knicks take a firm stance on not trading the kids, do you really see Ainge walking away from 6 to 8 first-round picks if he doesn't get Grimes? No, I don't. I think he wants the Knicks picks. I think he desires the Knicks picks immensely, and that is why. And that's why I said what I said before. This is why you hire Leon Rose. You hire him because he knows the position he's in. He knows he has what Ainge wants. He'll give Ainge what he wants, but he's not going to give him that plus some. We hope. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the one other thing is if you're the Knicks, what's the likelihood that one of Grimes, McBride, or Jokubaitis is not in the deal? Because let's say the backcourt is Brunson and Mitchell, right?
Mhm.
You're gonna have Quickly in there. Okay, maybe it's Grimes if it's not him traded. Okay, but then what if it's Deuce if Grimes is traded? Because you don't need Deuce necessarily if Grimes is still in the roster. And if you have both, like, is he going to be determined to get at least one young player? Because oftentimes it's salary filler, it's some sort of young player or players, and it's picks. It's not often where the young players are just elsewhere or not included at all, right? Like the Rockets deal, Jared Allen went to Cleveland, but that was a whole 4-team deal. Like the Rockets could have just taken him, but they didn't want to. So you have to give up some sort of young player at some point. If you've got your backcourt set and you have two other players and you do expect to bring Jokubaitis over and you have McBride and you have Grimes, something's got to give. So it doesn't have to necessarily be in this trade, but I would imagine this is the trade that would most likely feature one of them.
This is why I think the Cam Reddish piece of all this is fascinating to me, because it's very clear from the reporting that the Knicks have been trying to seek value for him. I'll try to put it politely. And they have thus far have not had any takers. The Jazz do not want Cam Reddish. That's where I think the 3-teamer comes into play also. And again, I'm not trying to spoil my whole analysis of this fake Lakers trade. So let's move on to the next question.
One more thing.
What?
Okay.
Yes, what?
If the Knicks trade for Donovan Mitchell, I'm going to probably blow your mind on this one, and Cam Reddish isn't part of the deal in a 3-team deal, have him stay here. The Knicks do not have a lot of wings.
That's fine.
The whole thing with Cam for me was
fine.
If the Knicks want to trade him in a different situation because they want to create cap space, I would understand it if they can get good value for him. But if the Knicks are going to be over the cap, if they want to keep Cam Reddish, it goes back to the original argument we talked about when Cam Reddish was traded to the Knicks, which was, Cam Reddish is an over the cap, continuous soup type of guy. And if you have a need for wing talent, and let's face it, if the Knicks trade Cam Reddish and they don't get a wing in return, if they don't get a wing coming back with them in some way with Donovan Mitchell, then they are really up a creek. And that is an archetype of a player that they desperately need, and they're not a lot of them out.
I understand that. Well, hold on.
Not a lot of good ones out there.
Cam Reddish is a guy who wants the ball in his hands, and he wants to do things with the ball that he has thus far not really been given an opportunity to do. And some team out there should give him the opportunity to see what he could do with the ball in his hands. I'm not disparaging him. Maybe he's incredibly successful. If he is on this Knicks team next year, and the Knicks do not trade Julius Randle in this trade, he will never be one of the top 2 players on the floor in terms of you're getting on ball reps, because I do believe that the Knicks are going to stagger to the extent where they're always going to have 2 of Mitchell, Brunson, Randle, RJ on the floor at all times. I know it's not in Tibbs' MO. I think that he will adjust if they make this trade. And if Cam is here, he's going to be asked to be doing what essentially they're going to want Quentin Grimes to do. And I don't think Cam Reddish wants to do that. That's my only pushback.
But I don't think that's necessarily the case, because you can, even if he does a hockey lineup, then it makes perfect sense, right? Like Quickly, Grimes, Reddish, Toppin, Hartenstein. Like it makes sense to have Cam there because you got Quickly,
I like
right?
That. That's fine.
Right, sure. But we also haven't seen Tibbs do a ton of mixing and matching. I understand the idea of, okay, well, if you have Brunson and you have Mitchell, you have to have one of them on the court at all times. All right, so then you swap, I don't know, Grimes out and Mitchell in, or Quickly out and Brunson, or whatever combination you want to do. Like you still need to give RJ Barrett a bit of a rest. We've seen situations where RJ has been hurt and they need to have some sort of backup.
I know.
The whole conversation with Cam changes if you get Donovan Mitchell in the door. I then flip the opposite direction of where I have been, because it's all been about the money. And it shifts in just the different direction. That's all.
Could we just agree if Leon Rose had his druthers, Cam Reddish would be going out the door and Quentin Grimes would be staying?
But even then, I don't know if that's entirely. I think everything changes, but
I think that's
but they don't have to have an
easy.
impact one on the other. But why are we saying one has to impact the other? They're
they
two
don't.
different
They
players,
don't. But
two different archetypes, two different roles.
they don't. You're right. Yeah,
It doesn't have to be head to head. They can complement each other nicely.
But under the guise of a certain number of young players are probably going to be going out in this deal in some way, shape, or form. That's kind of where I'm
right. But if
coming from.
Teams are fearful about paying Cam Reddish, and you're getting Donovan Mitchell, and you need wings, how are you getting them?
I know one team who wouldn't mind paying Cam Reddish a year from now. Anyway.
Okay, but if it's the team I think you're thinking of, don't they have another issue that's $47 million worth?
Let's see if we can.
Okay.
Like I said, read the newsletter, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving along. Jonathan Francois. God bless everybody watching this as me and Jeremy bicker like two old men about something that how many people care about this? Ainge wants WB.
Warner Brothers.
What?
He wants Warner Brothers.
He wants Warner Brothers?
He wants to buy Warner Brothers.
Sure, maybe he does. Guy has a massive ego. He wants to build his own team. When I don't even know. Victor.
Nope. Oh, Wembanyama?
Wembanyama. Yes, Victor. He wants to build his own team. No way he wants Donovan Mitchell on his team opening night. DM value goes down each year. He's going to move him by opening night.
Be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah. Matt Smith. What's going on, Matt? Thank you for the contribution. Appreciate it. Hey, guys, sorry if I missed this already. No apologies here. As of right now, what do you think is the most likely package, and what do you think is the most likely timing? All right, I'll go first since I made you go first last time. What's today?
And Naheem Uden saying same thing. What are your
great. Naheem Uden, thank you for the contribution. I'm sorry, I'm looking up the date. It is July 17th. So I will give you, let's go August 8th. My wife's favorite number is 8. So 8. And I will go, the package is 3 of the protected firsts that they have from other teams, 3 of their own firsts, 2 completely unprotected, 1 with like some obscenely small protections.
We're getting into Stepien territory, though.
A swap. Fournier Rose. I don't think I can't. And Grimes. That's my prediction.
6 firsts and Grimes.
If you're asking my prediction,
yeah, is your prediction 6 firsts and Grimes?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay. I believe it was like the 22nd of August or something where Kyrie was acquired by the Celtics from the Cavs when he was traded. So Ainge is willing to have that stick around if need be. So I'll go August 18th.
I like it.
Yeah, might as well. And I'll go Rose and Fournier for salary. The pick part is where I get tripped up
because
there are a lot of
100 directions you can go.
Well, but again, like the easy answer to say is like, all right, trade both 2023 firsts, pick swap in 24, both 2025 firsts, and then a pick swap in 26, and then throw in 2 more firsts, right? That are the protected ones. But I don't think that's going to be the case because the Jazz have 3 first-round picks in the 2023 draft as is. So they'd have to find trade partners to consolidate because they don't need 5 players on the roster. Even if they had 1 player who was, overseas as a draft and stash, that's still like 4 guys you have to roster and find playing time for. It's not impossible. It just seems tricky. So I'll go with a 2023. I guess it would be the the 2023 Mavs pick, because then I want to do the 2024 Knicks pick, which is then not violating Stepien because you can still trade future picks as long as you have another one still in the draft.
Yeah, well, okay.
Then we'll go the Bucks 2025 pick, the other two protected picks that are there.
So you're doing all 4 protecteds.
Yeah, and then the 2026 first, and swaps in 23,
25 and 7.
27, even though the swaps are really just posturing. It's like, see, look what we got. The likelihood of them actually conveying is small. And then because of the fact that it's 6 picks that are being thrown in there, I'm going to say Jakobitis or Deuce instead of Grimes. I think Grimes and 6 is too much.
Sorry, did I forget to say Rokas and Deuce? Yeah, you could throw them in my deal too.
So you're throwing in 6 picks, Grimes, Jakobitis, and McBride?
You're asking me my prediction.
Is that your prediction?
Yeah.
Damn.
It's my prediction.
Damn. I don't know where the Knicks are getting that sort of heat from another team, and I don't mean that as a pun, although you could take it as such, where they'd have to throw in all of those players plus 6 firsts. But if that's your prediction, you stand by it. I hear you. I'll go 6 first.
I don't like it. I don't feel good about it.
I hear you. But
I'm not. I don't say this with any level of conviction. I'm just like I'm answering the question on the spot.
I respect it. I hear what you're saying. I just think it's gonna be a little less than that if the Knicks are tossing a league record-setting 6 first-round picks.
I really like what you did with the 24 and 26 and swaps in 23, 5 and 7. I like that a lot. That's good.
I hope it goes that way. Otherwise, again, it goes to the Stepien where I don't want any future firsts past 2026. And even then, it'd be like, it'd be great if it's 2025, but I understand why Danny Ainge would want to have a lot of those picks later on because he also got a ton of picks from Minnesota. So if he can have a way to double every single draft for the next 6 years, good for him. Hopefully it goes down that way. We'll see.
I want to amend something I said. Sorry, I'm going to get to Anthony's point. I want to amend something I said earlier that the sticking point is going to be Grimes. I wonder if it's going to be that 29 or either 28 or 29, however they do the years. I think Ainge is going to he wants it as far out as possible.
It's nice. As long as, it depends on how desperate. Does he think the Miami Heat also, those picks are going to be bad? Knowing Miami's track record, probably not going to be that bad.
Maybe they won't have to include Grimes. I'm telling you that's why he's the pivot point. I really don't know if they're going to have to include
I understand
him
if he's the pivot point. I just don't think he's the pivot point between 6 firsts and Grimes versus 6 firsts and not Grimes.
Okay.
That's just
All
where
right.
I see it.
All right, let's get to the next question. Anthony Sixto, we all want to see Knicks win games in a chip, but all analysis aside, how electric would MSG be with the best version of Spida? It's a risk, but man, would he be a lot of fun to watch? I don't even. Yes, MSG would be electric. That's my answer. It would be very electric, and they'd be back to being. Oh man, would they be a hot ticket? Robert Cross, this is for Cutlets. Let's assume that's you. Let's assume the picks line up for Spida. Where do you draw on the line on the players traded with Obi, Quickly, and Grimes?
I just don't. For me, Obi and IQ, you're not including them. You have an excess amount of picks for a reason. Basically, do you feel like you can yield a player better than who Obi and IQ are right now? And I got to tell you, I think it's very easy from the outside looking in. If you are someone who thinks like, oh, Obi and IQ, it's easy to do it, like get the job done. I prefer Grimes to them. I respect that if that's the thought. But I think when you think about the talent, and not to say that someone like Grimes wouldn't fit the culture fit, but there's something about IQ and Obi that they've established here. It just feels like, and when you also factor in with Donovan Mitchell and the homegrown factor, being boys with IQ, all of it, it all ties in together. And that's why for me, my preference, if it goes to 6 picks and no Grimes versus 5 picks and Grimes, I'm more comfortable with 6 picks. The question then is, when are the picks conveying? And that is a different conversation in itself. But But yeah, there's a way that the Knicks can avoid adding 3 of their 4 best prospects, no matter how you want to rank the, Obi, IQ, and Grimes. There's a way they can walk away with 4 of them. But if they do walk away with keeping all 4, it's going to sting on the back end of the picks. And I'm more comfortable with that than one fewer first for Grimes.
And my fear is that Ainge, as he should, probably, I shouldn't say that. My fear is that Ainge values the picks more than Grimes, and that Grimes is a negotiating ploy to get all 4 Knicks unprotecteds and a couple of the protecteds, and then there's your trade. But who knows? We'll see. Is Donovan Mitchell a Knick today? Yes. Love it. Reporting in, John, Donovan Mitchell is not currently a Knick. Thank you for the update. I'm going to be checking your account daily. I'm actually, you know what I'm going to do?
We did it, Joe.
It's so bad. I am going to put you on notifications. That's what I'm going to do, so that every time, please don't, if you start tweeting all kinds of nonsense, I'm obviously going to change this. But for right now, assuming that it's going to be 1 tweet a day, is Donovan Mitchell a Knick today? I'm putting you on notifications. That's what I'm doing.
You really should watch your shit without saying watch your shit.
John
Anyways.
Kim. Sorry if you guys already explained. I joined the stream late. Can you explain how the money works if we get Spider without sending Evan or Randle? It doesn't.
It does.
It's so let's do it real quick. It's so Rose 14.5, Cam almost 6. So here's the complicating part. You could actually get there with just Rose, Cam, and Obi if Donovan Mitchell waives his trade bonus. And I just looked at this earlier today, so I feel comfortable speaking on it. So Donovan Mitchell is a 15% trade kicker, which for his contract is about, you correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, it's about 4.5 per year.
If it's like 15%, yeah.
Yeah, whereabouts. So that gets added to his salary, which is $30 million. So then you need to add more salary to match if he does not waive the trade bonus. Now, players have waived trade bonuses in the past to accommodate trades. I wonder if the fine folks at Adidas Sports, if this trade were on the table and it came down to money, would be willing to say, you know what, Donovan, we'll spot you what you're losing here if you'd be so kind as to waive this to get yourself to the biggest market in mankind. I don't know.
I just actually thought of a leverage play that I hadn't considered. Maybe you have. Maybe you've talked about it, although I don't think you have. What happens if Donovan Mitchell is so sold on the idea of going to New York that a team like Miami that already kind of struggles to make the math work with the salary they have, where he doesn't waive his trade bonus?
That's interesting.
I'm just saying, like, I'd have to more closely see the numbers because I haven't. Again, this is a thought that just popped into my head. But if the math would work out, because it's tough to do if you're Miami, you don't have a lot of tradable salaries right now outside of Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero. You'd have to essentially now move Kyle Lowry to make the math work. I don't know if they want to do that. So, and I don't know why the Jazz would want Kyle Lowry. Just a thought. Could be an interesting little wrinkle if he had that much say and it came down to that.
Sorry, I'm just doing shit. It's
a leverage play.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good call by you. If he didn't waive the trade bonus, actually, Rose, Cam, Obi, and McBride, I actually think still leaves them a little short. But so if he doesn't, it can get dicey if Fournier is not in there. Let's just leave it at that. Next up,
hey guys,
is Andrew.
Hi Andrew. Is Andrew just resetting? We are entering into the third part, what looks like, of this post game. Thank you to everybody who joined us. We are talking about all things Donovan Mitchell and KFS reaching a milestone. And the Knicks played a game tonight. Jeremy, I have no idea what I'm getting.
No,
a
now
new
you're
mic,
good. Now you're-
okay?
Now you're probably better.
Okay. Jeremy's texting me privately volume, and
It's
then
the
he went, "No, you're
Goldilocks
too quiet." So I have no
conundrum,
idea
yeah.
whether to go too far away or too close.
Just right.
Regardless, thank you to the over 550 now still watching with us on YouTube, which a place where we just hit over 10,000 subscribers. And another reason why I am joining at the moment is because the next question is directed to me. I will make this quick for those of you that tire of the baseball questions. From Juan for Andrew. Question for Andrew: how do the Mets get Soto? So
I know what
funny.
this is referencing.
John, break the news to everybody. What does that mean?
Juan? Is it Juan Soto?
Juan Soto, yes.
Juan Soto was described, who was a player a person I did not know existed before yesterday.
Nope.
Was described to me by noted baseball fanatic Bernardo Zarowski
Mhm.
as this is as so he was he couldn't find a contract agreement with the Nats, and they are now going to try to trade him. So Bernard described this to me as this is as if Luka Doncic has gone on the trading block.
Yes, and was like a year and a half away from free agency,
And cost like half of what he's making
in a
league where
non-salary
there's
cap sport. Yeah,
someone said it's the Herschel Walker
it's gonna
package.
take that. So it's funny. I had my friends that are Yankee fans. I don't know how you feel about this, Jeremy, but he was like, "I'll give this, but I'm not giving up Volpe." And all of us in the chat just
Come on.
LOL'd at him.
Well,
And I
say
just-
what Bernard said.
Well,
he was
so-
like, I would tell them to pick any 10 prospects.
Pick any 10
Mhm.
prospects, and then I'd probably still have to give more. So what I did was I took a screenshot of the Major League Baseball's top 10 prospects that they have listed for the Yankees, and I just circled the top 10 and said, all right, this is what you're offering for Soto. The other comp that Bernard gave was that Juan Soto is like 90% of Ted Williams, which is not that far off to like what the modern version of Ted Williams that just got on base consistently and is 23 years old. We talk about Obi Toppin is older than this guy. Like that's the way you can put it. To answer Juan's question, how the Mets get him, two things would have to happen. Mike Rizzo, the general manager of the Nationals, would need to get fired, and the owner, Ted Lerner, whatever his name is, the owner of the Nationals would need to die. Because the Nationals have not made a significant trade with the Mets since 2015, and it was Jerry Blevins for Matt Dendecker. Before that, you got to go back to Lastings Millage for Brian Schneider and Ryan Church. The Nationals hate the Mets and do not want to make deals with them.
Why?
I wonder. It's just their division rivals. They're not trading him within the division. I think the Yankees are in play, although they are going to have to back up the Brinks truck for Judge. I actually think, Jeremy, okay, now people are saying check SNY News. Nats is already talking to the Mets. I think they're going to bring the Mets in because the Mets would absolutely be the highest bidder. I think the sneaky team, Jeremy, is the Giants. The San Francisco Giants have been in on Garrett Cole. They were in on Giancarlo Stanton. They were in on Mookie Betts. They were in on all these big name guys and never got one. So they're the team that's willing to give him what will be a record-breaking contract. If they get him.
Well, what about the Padres? Wouldn't they make sense?
They would too. Yeah, they would too. I guess my thought was that they already have Tatis, but that's only one, I guess.
I mean, I'm just currently looking now through all of these teams in a basketball podcast, but like for what it's worth, I know this is never going to happen, so I feel fine saying it. The idea of a 3-team deal where the Yankees, I can't believe I'm going to say it, trade Aaron Judge to a team that's willing to pay him, and they send a bunch of prospects from that team and have prospects of their own and find a way to get Juan Soto. Like, could you sell a fan base on that? It emotionally be horrible, but yeah, you could find a way to do it. And it's never going to happen. It's not going to happen.
When would
That's
this
why
trade
I feel like
happen?
that's the thing. It'd have to happen by
This
what,
deadline?
August 2nd? Yeah, and it's not
So
going to be the
you're
case.
saying
Yeah,
that in 2 weeks,
I am not saying that. I am not saying that at all.
after all this, the Aaron Judge.
I think there's a better chance Luka Doncic ends up on the Knicks.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think the Nats are I see the report that shout out to this is a tremendous name. CAA Mafia tweet is in our chat saying that Soto to the Mets is being talked about by SNY. Respect to our friends over at SNY. Respect to Andy Martino, who's reporting this. I do not agree and will believe that the Nats and Mets make a significant trade when it actually happens. I just don't see it happening within the division. What I would trade is Obi, IQ, RJ, Grimes, all the picks, all the swaps, all the protected picks. I'd trade let's see, this hat. I'd trade this Obi shirt. Shout out to Ernie for making it for us. Shout out to John for sending it. There's like 6 things I wouldn't trade for Juan Soto. I just don't think a deal's going to happen.
Also, like he could just stay with the team through the end of the year, and then they could have the largest trade ever, or one of.
You understand why they? It's like when Anthony Davis, when Rich Paul sent that report out that he's seeking a trade right before the deadline. Like they said it when they did, so they can create an urgency. So
the Nats also definitely released that rumor.
Oh yeah, they sent it out so that way a team that is desperate will want to trade for him now. But you're right, the offseason makes more sense. I think we did this conversation.
I was about to say, I wish I had anything to contribute to this conversation.
You did. You told us about Juan Soto.
Jeremy, John watched baseball yesterday.
Oh yeah, I watched actually both games. I didn't stay up till the end of the second game, but I watched the first Met game almost in its entirety. It was a very fun game. Great pick by JD Davis, and then watched most of the second game. So.
Yeah, I was watching Jerry Maguire with the Mets on the iPad last night, and I was like bummed out because like I thought they were gonna blow it, and they got the double play to end it. It's like, oh wow, I'm actually happy. You complete me, New York Mets.
That's baseball season.
Next up.
Jessica, what's going on, Jessica? Congrats, guys. Thank you for your constant graciousness and great flow of quality content. Here's to 100,000 subs next. Yeah, maybe by the time Donovan Mitchell hoists a championship trophy, we'll get to 100,000.
Maybe.
Could happen.
Yeah.
It's not
Why
crazy.
not?
Always appreciate you, Jessica. Lunas Emirat. Sorry if this was said. Just tuned in. Felt Begley report. A deal will eventually get done for New York is the biggest info to come out. I don't think he'd just say that. So it's funny. I glanced on Twitter and saw some people speaking about this. My impression of him saying that was more he thinks a deal will get done in which Donovan Mitchell is traded more than I don't know. I would like to ask him about this actually.
I read it as the way that Lunas is presenting it.
That it will be to the Knicks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because the interesting part of it though is he in the same video talked about Miami being an interested party. And wrote that as much. Wrote as much as well.
Yeah, part of me feels like, and I don't know, but he would have said in his opinion, Donovan Mitchell will be traded.
Maybe,
versus a deal will be done. I think there's a distinct, but I'd have to reread or review it again.
Yeah, I don't. It's a good question. I wish I had a better answer. My take was that initially I agreed with both of you, but then I should rewatch. I'm not sure. I'll try to ask Ian. We'll see. Robert Cross, Mr. Grumpy being here is detrimental to RJ's development. Mr. Grumpy being Julius Randle, of course. And eventually wholly blocks Obi. Drives me nuts. Hashtag 53 wins. Robert is definitely on his shit today. With another one. First time, long time, Cutlets. The second star is Broadway Barrett. The tortoise wins the race. I don't want any Celtics retreads here. Oof. Bringing the heat. Jason Tatum is the Celtics retread. Just on the Barrett point, I think this, and I want to be very clear, this is not my opinion of RJ Barrett, but the fact that Danny Ainge is so willing to move on from Barrett as a potential piece in this deal, which by all indications he is seemingly willing to do because he wants to focus on the picks. If he thought Barrett was that like a future, all NBA level player, I don't think he would be doing that. And I think most of the NBA, at least in terms of how the media are speaking about this potential trade, which is in much the same way we are speaking about it, which is where do you get the second star, right? And going to Fred Katz's great piece from a few weeks ago about he spoke to 16 front office executives. Not one person said they would give RJ Barrett the max. The opinion out there right now, Robert, is that, nobody agrees with you. Now, you know who hears all that? It's RJ Barrett. And I'm sure it is motivating him right now to be the best RJ Barrett that he could be. To sit here right now and say that, RJ will be the second guy, I hope it happens. I don't think it's crazy to suggest as much. But,
I'll go to the point I've been making all along, which is that plan for RJ not to be the second guy. And if he pops and he's the second guy, or if he's the first guy, or if he's the third guy, whatever you want to call it, and he's a tremendous top 25 player, then great. But you've also planned in a way where you've now made a juggernaut. And that's great to me. But to me, like going with RJ and the whole Jazz conversation, it reminds me of Brandon Ingram, where he was coming off of his third year. He had DVT and was not healthy. It's almost like the Pelicans being like, yeah, we don't want any part of Brandon Ingram because we have to pay him in a year. They still took him. I'm not trying to make a one-to-one comparison with Ingram or RJ Barrett. I'm not. It's just like Ingram also needed time, and he's a very good player right now.
Oh, I love
Ingram. But it's just still the mindset of like, okay, like that different where you just don't want him at all. Okay, well, if picks is what you prefer, then picks it is. That's okay. We'll keep RJ Barrett.
Yep. And I hope it works out for both parties. CT Pittman, what's going on, CT? Here's a wrench to throw in. Does Tibbs get a contract extension if he gets at least 45 wins? Didn't he got a 5-year contract, right?
Yeah, and they've already guaranteed all 5 years.
I don't think we're there yet. I think give him another year. And then maybe,
when Social Security kicks in for him.
It's not even a joke.
It's not.
It's
going to be
6'5". Yeah, literally the case. Good question, though. I like that. Mello from Toronto. What's going on, man? My guys, just wanted to hop here and say congrats on 10K. Thank you. Thank you for always contributing to and contributing not only with Super Chats, but to the conversation. Y'all got me through some dark times these past couple of years. Least we could do, and that's honestly priceless for me. For that, I'm forever thankful to KFS. Let's go Knicks. Appreciate you, Mello from Toronto. Missed you on the live stream today, but I know you'll be back when the real games start. No shade on Summer League.
What do you mean real games?
John's just been putting down this final. When the Knicks make a final,
you know what it was? Because the game was fucking ass.
Why do you hate Summer League?
John, did you see the box score? It was 84-77. I don't care about the context. It means it was a 7-point game. I don't care if it was a double-digit deficit. I'm ignoring all context to say that it was close.
That was worse than many games that we watched in the 2017-18 season.
Maybe, but there was more at stake for this one.
Same amount of talent level.
Sad but true.
Whoa. Let's have some respect for Quentin Grimes here,
apologies.
Okay?
Let's respect to Quentin Grimes. Well done, Jeremy. Oh, man.
Next up. Callum Lewis. Congrats on 10K, guys. Never really said anything in the chat, but I'm always listening and watching from the UK. Keep up the great work. 3 legends, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate you contributing. Appreciate your congratulations.
Across the pond, right? That's where the UK... That's what they say about the UK. They're across the pond.
That it is across the pond.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's the pond is the Atlantic Ocean. It's not like a pond.
Oh, word.
That's out there.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, I know.
Playing into the.
Can you?
I know.
Should we put Andrew on the spot right now and ask him to name all 4 components of the UK?
England.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
This is man, England, Scotland.
There's another obvious one.
Is there really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I can't name the other 2.
Think of an animal, but it's not an animal.
Think of it. What?
Think of the name of an animal, but it's not spelled the same way as the animal.
Oh, Wales.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I believe isn't it called the Republic of Wales technically?
Okay.
Might be.
I think it's called the Republic of Wales. I'm gonna look. It
Oh,
up.
the chat spoiled it. The Northern Ireland is the other one.
Do you know
so
there's a
there's
UK and
Ireland
Great
and
Britain?
There's Ireland in Northern Ireland?
Yes, that was what the whole
Is that-
IRA issue was.
There's a
with-
lot of
lot of
bombs
history
set
there.
off.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Do you know there's the UK and Britain?
No, I don't actually.
That Britain is the island that is England, Scotland, and Wales, and Great Britain is that island. Excuse me, the UK is that island and Northern Ireland.
Got it.
So, yeah.
Okay. I was talking to somebody yesterday about like what the KFS brand is, and I tried to be as humble as possible when I said this, but I was like, I really do feel like you get an education when you come here, whether it's an actual education or you just become a smarter basketball fan, either or.
Andrew, capital of Wales.
Dolphin. I don't know.
Wait, how many vowels are in the capital?
How many?
Seriously? 2.
Because there are Welsh words that have an incredible amount of vowels. It's insane.
2
it's almost like
vowels.
interesting.
What's the capital of Wales?
You really don't know it?
I couldn't name a city in Wales.
I couldn't either. It's Cardiff.
That's right.
No, it's-
Duh.
Rolls right off the tongue. No offense to any subscribers in Cardiff. We're gonna go under 10,000 now.
Or Wales.
Okay. Or Wales. Yes, we appreciate
bad
all
job.
you
Bad
across
job
the
by you.
pond. Yes. Next up is a question for me too.
Juan Cruz asks, "You guys are the best. Look forward to the chat. My question is Juan Soto a Met today?"
You're gonna be refreshing that account every day until the end of his career. Then they'll call Brody Van Wagenen up to rehire him, and then when Juan Soto is 38 and still making $35 million a year, they'll trade their best prospect for him. Shout out Robinson Cano.
But hey, that best prospect's probably not going to pan out. So.
Yes, and then we'll get Edwin Diaz in the trade to make me feel better about it. The most unhittable thing I've ever seen.
I know who that is.
63-year-old Edwin Diaz.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll get Edwin Diaz in that
Yeah.
trade too, because
Mhm.
he'll have gone to wherever he is.
Yeah.
We are caught up on super chats.
Hey, all right. So, anything else we got to talk about before we get out of here?
I think this is like an official, a pun intended, cap on the off season for. I know technically, like the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes are gonna keep going, but Summer League signals a point of ending for the off season. I think for a lot of the NBA people and their calendar. So
Yeah.
we can just kind of, if you want to put a cap on it, we have like 15 minutes so we can do so.
It's. I have to go back to what I said at the top of the show. It's impossible to put a cap on where things are at right now because of the uncertainty. Because the direction, the 2 pivot points, or the pivot point, the fork in the road, as it were, where the Knicks are at right now in terms of Donovan Mitchell or no Donovan Mitchell. Well, I agree if they don't get him, there's still a lot to be excited. Like before, how about this? Before, what was the first report that dropped, right? I think it was Woj initially saying that they would, right? Was it Woj that they would listen, or was it Shams that they would listen on to offers or something?
The Jazz?
Yeah,
The Woj.
it was Woj. And then Shams, I think, said
Said
like,
they discussed
they're
discussions
talking
had
with them.
started.
Yeah. If those reports never come out, right? And it's just, all right, we got Jalen Brunson, we got Isaiah Hartenstein, we got the kids coming back for another year. I think we're all really excited. I think we're all really, pumped up about the season. I think we're looking forward to watching the young players play. I think we're wondering, can they get value for Randle? Can they move Randle and open up space for Toppin, the whole thing? But there is definitely a sense of like, well, this is all nice and fun and cute, but it's still the whatever the finish line of this iteration of this team is not. I mean, it's not a championship, right? I don't think I'm saying anything untoward here. Whereas if they get Donovan Mitchell, then immediately it's like, oh, well, the Knicks are on the NBA's map in a way that they were not previously. And that, may not matter to a lot of people, but I think it matters. I think it does matter. So I don't. It's a very long-winded way of saying I don't know how to put a cap on this offseason because it feels like it like now we're at like this is how we put a cap on it is determined by what happens now.
Job's not finished.
No,
Job's not. Listen, we're staring at a team where you could make an argument that there are 11 players who need to absolutely be in the rotation, and there are only 10 spots. And you essentially, if you're Tom Thibodeau, have to hope for a trade. And if a trade doesn't materialize, then there needs to be an injury, and you don't hope for an injury. And you can't leave Evan Fournier out of the rotation because he's making $18 million. And you can't leave Cam Reddish out of the rotation because it's a contract year and you just traded a protected first-round pick for him. And you can't trade Quentin Grimes or you can't take Quentin Grimes out of the rotation because of what we just saw and the fact that he was clearly a player that Tibbs liked. So, and I haven't even talked about Deuce McBride and Derrick Rose and all like they haven't tied up the loose ends that are there. And the best way to tie up these loose ends is most likely a Donovan Mitchell trade where more players you're doing the roster consolidation that we started this offseason talking about, and it would fittingly end with the offseason, so to speak. So, like I could talk about where the Knicks could go from here long term, what their cap looks like, all that stuff. And I just don't feel confident with it because there's still more work that needs to be done. And it's hard to get a full read on what the next direction is without knowing what the next shoe to drop will be. So I like the work that the Knicks have done this far. I'm at the point where if you needed to wait Donovan Mitchell out, the Knicks are in a great position to do that because even if you take the other competition into consideration, the Knicks have assembled a good team. This is a team I expect to be in the play-in tournament and hopefully 7th, 8th, in that spot. So
I want to jump in there because we referenced earlier the over-under win totals came out over the weekend. So regardless of what the Knicks do between now and the beginning of the season, they will wind up with a higher over-under win total than the predicted, whatever you want to call it, the Vegas puts out, higher than the following teams: Houston, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, Orlando, Detroit, Indiana. They will have a higher over-under win total than those 6 teams. After those 6, as of right now, and again, Utah may be a part of those 6, but as of right this second, the next team is a bit of a jump, and that's the Kings. And then after the Kings, who are kind of in a territory of their own, then you jump up again a little bit, and I think Washington is the next one up, and then you start to get to some of those like lower tier Eastern teams. If the Knicks don't make another move, and you told me that at Vegas put them as the 8th lowest total, so above the Kings, but like below the Wizards and below the Hornets and below, I don't even know who the lowest other Western team is. I guess I don't know, whatever. It'll probably wind up being Utah, even if they keep Mitchell. Like, I'd be like, okay, that seems right. Maybe I would argue that they should be the 9th lowest. Maybe I should argue that they should be higher than Charlotte too, so 10th lowest.
Really?
But what do you think they should be? Who do you think they're going to be higher than?
I mean,
Cleveland?
I'm just saying we talked about 37 and 45 with this team, and Kemba Walker was just showing the door, and Jalen Brunson's a much better player. And Evan Fournier's role is going to be mitigated or downsized a bit, and you're going to have Quentin Grimes there too.
So other than the 6 tanking teams, and let's say that they're higher than, let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they're higher than Washington, that they're higher than Charlotte, and that they're higher than Utah. Even if Utah has Donovan Mitchell, let's say, so that's 10th lowest, right? Who else are they higher than?
I mean, can't you just look at last year's draft too? Like, again, I still go back to the fact that I feel like they're a good team that had a down year and they improved.
Okay, but
that's where I'm at.
They're not going to be higher than Portland.
Sure, on paper, but
I'm just talking about the number they're going to get. That's all I'm talking about. The number they're going to get. Do
you think Charlotte's going to be a better team?
I think there's a chance that the Knicks have a higher over under than Charlotte.
Okay,
I think that's probable.
there's
That's-
two things going on here, Jeremy. He's literally not. He's not saying whether he thinks the Knicks will be better. He's
I'm
saying
just-
what Vegas will
Well,
Yeah.
sure.
predict
If
over under numbers.
if Vegas
will
wants
be.
to bet on the Knicks like they did in 2020, but with a slightly different dip, because
That's all
they
I'm
account for-
saying.
Sure, I thought
Yeah.
you were saying for you.
No, no,
Not
no.
for,
That's
for Vegas, sure. If Vegas wants to
Yes.
think that way, then I understand why. If they believe it's not going to work out, I get that. Yeah, sorry.
and
Thought it was
and this is my way of arriving at this point, which is that you could tell me the Knicks, if they do not trade for Donovan Mitchell, are the 6th seed next year. And well, the Nets situation complicates that, because assuming the Nets take KD into the season, you would find it probably hard to believe that the Knicks would finish with a better record than the Nets. I do think Toronto is really good, and then you have the top 4 teams in the East. But like, if you told me that today, I'm like, okay, man, something must have happened. But I believe it. I buy it. And then if you told me things went sideways and then they were 8th, 9th, 10th in the lottery, I'd be like, okay, I believe that too. That's the pivot point that they're at, because if you trade for Donovan Mitchell, I do not believe that same downside exists. So two very different outcomes here.
Jeremy,
Also-
can I? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's also interesting that Vegas thinks that the Suns are done. That the fact the Suns are on the board would give off the implication that they don't feel that the
That
Nets are trading KD
Yeah.
to Phoenix, which I still think is kind of wild. That he's destined to start the season. I mean, we'll see. He's under contract, so sure, but that it's still just surprising
What would be the deal
with KD and the Suns.
to the Suns? Yeah, they can't trade Ayton.
They don't have to. You could, Mikal
Yeah, but why the
Bridges,
Nets?
I mean,
why do the
all
Nets do
the
that?
their
picks
picks?
and McCall and Cam is
Cam?
still a
Yeah, that's a good.
Why do the Nets want to do that? It's Kevin Durant.
maybe they don't.
Okay, it's Kevin Durant at 34 years old as well.
Kevin Durant, 34 years old, gives you a chance to win a title.
Yeah, Kevin Durant at 34 years old with players who are better than what the Nets have. Because I saw a team last year that got swept in the first round of the playoffs. I didn't see another team get swept in the playoffs last year.
Listen,
If
I'm
you were
all
that much of a
for-
superstar, you'd win at least one game, just one. But you
I'm
didn't.
all for that. I think one of their better players playing half the games is why they fell to 7th. But I get your.
mean,
I'm higher on the Nets than you are. I think
Giannis
I
pushed it to 7 against the conference finalists without Chris Middleton. He had Drew Holiday, who is
He's not
sometimes
Giannis,
playing
yes.
for the other. Oh, right. I understand. He doesn't have to be Giannis. But again, like you're telling me he can't win one game as a superstar. A lot of superstars are out there. They won more than one game. That's all.
Can I just
Even with
say, I
the
think
teams.
Why do you love Brooklyn, Andrew?
Can I just say, I think Vegas is sleeping on Sacramento. Sacramento has 31.5. That means Vegas thinks Sacramento is going to lose 50 games.
I mean,
They play in a.
I
tough
like what
conference.
they've done. I think they're
Yeah.
going to. I think they're going to win more than 32 games, or at least
Sure.
32 games.
what did they win last year?
I don't care. Their last season was a disaster.
So last year they won 30. They're voting that West.
They
gets
got a guy
better.
who's probably going to be the second best player from this rookie class this year. This year only. This year, I think they got the guy who's going to be the second best rookie this year, and in Keegan Murray, and they got Sabonis for a full year. They didn't they get They made another move. They got Malik
They
Monk.
got Malik Monk. Yeah. So take
think
the
they got-
over, John.
I think that I think I will be taking the over.
There you go.
There you go.
Then Vegas got you. They got you to take the over, just like they got a bunch of people take the Knicks over last year. That's how Vegas works. They don't actually care about what they think will happen. They just think what people will bet on and then under the most.
I think it's a-
so
I
the
think it's
house
a-
wins.
I think it's a low number. And you know what I think is a high number? I think Charlotte's a high number. 36.5. I could see Charlotte having some serious they went into the shitter potential.
Which
Just spitballing.
my other question was going to be to Jeremy. So what teams do you have the Knicks over that made the playoffs last year? Charlotte's an easy one to make a case for. Is Cleveland then one of them?
I think you could make it a good argument for
And
it.
then
Yeah.
you're blowing up Brooklyn.
Or at least not expecting them to be. I mean, it's hard to bet
full
against
season
Durant, but
of
it's
them,
sure.
Like, so
But they also, is Ben Simmons going to play? How is the fit going to work? Is Kevin Durant? How many games are you going to get out of him? Like, I don't mean to put him down and say they're out of the playoff picture. I think that'd be wrong. They're still a good team, but what improvements have they really made? It was Royce O'Neal. Is he going to be the difference between
Actually,
natural bounce back? Yeah, he's
do
fine.
like Royce O'Neal, and I
but
like,
he's not like Royce
the
O'Neal is
Indiana
not going to be that
they got.
guy. The
Right, but he's
Indiana
going
guy?
to be a backup. Is my point.
I
Woj
understand,
bomb.
but
Woj bomb.
The Denver Nuggets are signing Australian forward Jack White to a 2-way
Dude,
contract.
son of a
Sources tell ESPN.
Jack White,
Jack White.
is he bringing the Seven Nation Army?
I like that song. That's a good
Yeah.
song.
It's good, yeah.
Ah, you knew that song because you were more.
Are we still broadcasting?
We
Yeah,
are still broadcasting.
we've got
Should we,
super
should we put a all right?
Yes, and we'll
another
wrap
super
up.
chat.
Josh Kyle, how does JR fit with this? How does JR fit with this team if we get Mitch? Does he get traded if we land him? I wouldn't include
Oh, Andrew, Chicago.
Obi Toppin in the deal.
I was wondering if you're gonna say Chicago down
call
here
'em
was the
frauds.
prediction too.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the same. I think the Knicks at 7, right behind Brooklyn at 6 would be my call, and the Knicks are playing the Bulls in the play-in.
Yeah. Sorry to get back to
If
to-
you were to
okay.
best
Josh's.
case scenario of it,
Let's all go. Yes, no. Does Julius Randle get traded before the season if they land Donovan Mitchell? I say no.
no.
I'll say no.
Yeah. Sorry,
Sorry.
Josh. Believe me, we're all
We're all
feeling
rooting
that.
for the same thing.
Next up,
Sima Singh, what's going on, man? Thank you for the contribution. Congrats on 10K, guys.
he's got there is a Knicks logo, a Mets logo, a Rangers logo, and a Giants logo in there. 3 out of 4 ain't bad.
Yeah.
Sima.
I agree. 3 out of 4 ain't bad.
3 out of 4 ain't bad because it works both ways. There, Jerry,
well,
there you go.
One of the teams has seen a championship in our lives. The other, hasn't. But yeah,
That's
3 out of
really
4.
the last
Giants-
time it's ever happened. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's rare. Giants and Mets. It's usually
I should say 2 since the Rangers won, but you were 5 and I wasn't born.
Thank
Or
you,
6.
Jerry.
all right.
Next up.
Robert Cross, first time, long time, John. It's good to have you, Robert. There is no off season. We are all out of our goddamn minds, especially me. Well, I will say this: is this the last super chat?
No, there's one more.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say it would be a good way to end it for me to say we got lots
Well-
more content coming up, so stay tuned to the Knicks Film School YouTube channel, which now has 10,000 subscribers.
Dom Cappuccini, man.
Oh, Dom,
Wow.
what are you doing? Why? What? Thank you. Thank you. Really, truly appreciate it. Always appreciate your comments and appreciate you hitting me up on DMs because I always enjoy your thoughts. Savages, figured I would have missed you guys. I missed the game, so I'll just ask a spider question. Here we go. Let's say they send off 6 picks and have 2 left over. Okay. How long do they have to wait to use the other 3? Potentially using 5 in total for
Star number 2.
star number 2. How long do they have to wait to get
It's
the other
essentially
3?
a step-in
Okay.
question.
So
yeah.
this is a Stepien question. So let's do this. Recap for anybody who may have missed the earlier portion of the conversation. The Stepien rule, which is named after the Cleveland Cavaliers owner, who traded away so many first-round picks that the league had to basically create a rule that says you cannot trade first-round picks in consecutive years or more than 7 years out. It basically says that for the Knicks to get here, so if the Knicks trade away, how many did Dom give away in that one?
Is it 5? 6. I think it was 6.
So the easy answer here is if they send out the 4 protected ones that they own from different teams, Dallas, Milwaukee, Washington, and Detroit. And then they trade away 2 of their own firsts in 2023 and 2025, then, well, actually, by that logic, they would have to to get 5 more, they would have to just acquire more first. I'm trying to think what is actually honestly the quickest way to this is like a riddle, because if they really give away 6, I guess there's no easy way to get to 5 after you give away 6. The easiest way to do it would be to acquire first round picks from other teams. That would be the way to do it.
If you get if you're tossing 6 picks to Utah, the soonest you can then trade a first round pick would be 2027 due to Stepien because
your
own picks. Yes.
Which
I'm
means
saying the 4 protected
yeah.
picks the Knicks acquired plus one of the 2020, the 2023
Yeah,
first
so-
and the 2025 first. I don't think it'll go that way, but then you can't trade 2025 and 2026 because presumably all the protected firsts are gone. So
let's
if we
make it
remove the
simpler.
protected firsts, then you're left with, okay, you can't trade future back-to-back firsts.
Let's make it even simpler. A team can never trade away 5 of its first round picks. It is literally that the Stepien room makes that impossible. So the only way you could trade 5 is if you have at least 1 pick from another team. And even then, you're talking about trading the full 7 years out, which you could only do if you have not traded away any of your own first round picks. I think realistically, what you're angling for here is like, what's the way that they could do the Utah trade and give Utah what they want, and the simplest path towards still having enough left over, specifically in draft equity, to make the next trade. And my thinking would be you figure out a way to get Utah to take the 4 protected picks that you own, plus your own 23 and 25 picks, even though, as Jeremy said earlier, I know you missed this, Utah probably doesn't want a 23 pick because they have a lot of 23 picks already. In order to do that, you're probably including, at the very least, you're including Grimes in the deal, and maybe another young player. We'll put that to the side right now. Then you'd be able to trade away 27 and 29, but in addition to that, you'd be able to trade away swaps. So you're talking about maybe you open yourself up to being able to trade away swaps in 26, 28, and then a year from now, you could trade away a swap in 30. So that's like kind of 5. It's 2 plus 3 swaps. That's right.
Yeah, I guess the 4 protected picks, 2024 and 2026, all going out. That's probably the sweet spot.
Yeah,
keep a 2023 pick, you keep a 2025 pick. The soonest you can then trade your firsts is 2028. But here's the good news. Well, no, that would still be the case. It'd still be 2028.
Let me just. There's also, and again, this is what we could go talk about this stuff for hours. There's a world where I'm just very quickly spitballing this. The Knicks hang on to their 2024 first, right? Okay. And they make the Mitchell trade. Okay. We're sitting here and it's draft night on 2024, 2 years from now, roughly. The Knicks have their own pick. The Wizards pick maybe 2025 would be a better example, but whatever. Let's just go with 24. The Wizards pick conveys, because I think it's lottery protected for the next 2 years, right? So let's say the Wizards sneak in as like the 7th seed. And the Pistons pick conveys. I think it's top 18 protected for 2 years. So you know what? I'm going to amend this. Let's fast forward to 2025. Sorry. Fast forward to 2025. 3 of these picks convey that they keep. Let's say they keep 3 of these, the protected ones. They could all convey in the same year. And then by that point, you'll be able to trade picks out to 2032. So, like, you could put together a real package if you could give a team 3 picks in a draft and they're all, like, decent picks. Like, there's lots of ways you could do it. You just have to, you have to negotiate.
Gotta be creative.
Big and creative, which in Brock Aller we trust.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Andrew. Am I reading this?
It's a podcast, is what Andrew would say.
Every time. I swear. It's like, oh, good job. It's like, John, now you have to read it when you react to it.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight and for getting us over 10,000 subs. Hope you all enjoy the summer. We'll see you in the fall or for the next emergency live stream. I know which one of those I think it will be. Really, seriously. Thank you, everybody, for getting us to 10K. Thanks for all the generous contributions tonight. Dom, you're the man. Thank you for that last one. And, yeah, this was fun.
Have a good summer, everybody. If you need me, I'll be, you know where I'll be, watching the Mets. Yes. Take care.